This is our first episode of May.
Oh, come on now.
So there's no better way to start off the month of May and kind of set the tone of what we've got. We got a lot we want to get into, and I told you this beforehand, and I'm gonna stand by it that this will probably be the best one that you and I have done up to date, and obviously from here on out, each one will be better than the last. But I think this one we're gonna take it to a level that we haven't taken it to before.
Yeah, or
I
at
think
least since in a long, long
Yeah,
time.
I think we're gonna ramp
Yeah,
it up a little bit, which is good. We got our feet wet a little bit. We got the flow back a little bit. Now I think we're at the point where we can take it to the next step. So there's a lot we want to get into right now. We have the backdrop of the Detroit Orlando game. It's the third quarter. Detroit just went up after three. They're up 69-51. It was actually pretty close. Up until kind of the end of the second quarter, and now it's an 18-point game. All of which is to say there's a lot we want to get into. NBA playoffs. We're going to do a baseball deep dive as well, which I'm really looking forward to. So I'm going to leave it to you as far as which one you want to start with. And then, we'll hit both. I know we've got some stuff after that as well that we'll get into as well. But with Detroit going up by 20, you're rocking a sweet hat tonight or today, or whatever time it is. Honestly, this is the kind of fit. This is a nice thumbnail right here. I get a nice snazzy picture of you, man. Wow. Anyways, floor is yours, man. I want to see where you want to start this, and we'll go from there.
we'll get the ball rolling with MLB, and maybe by that point, this will have a strong idea.
We'll have a
of who
stronger
wins.
picture of
Yeah,
this Detroit
who wins
Orlando
this
game. That's
so
good. All right. So let's go with that MLB deep dive. So we've talked a lot about the Giants over the years, at different points, and we've talked about the league at different times. But I think it's been a really long time since you and I have done a proper division by division, team by team, including said Giants deep dive. There's also been a lot that's happened up until now throughout the season. Um, a lot of the things that I think I'd be curious to get your opinion on are a lot of the managerial firings and soon to be fired managers,
right, yeah.
and maybe something that I really want to get into as well that will build off of that. Um, I also would love to say some stuff about your Giants at some point as well. And the NL West at large, especially, but all divisions got a lot of interesting stuff. But I figured, we can go division by division here. We can maybe save the NL West for the end.
Yeah, always best for last.
That's what I was thinking.
Always
So I
best for
figured
last.
on the subject of managerial firings and divisions,
It's a great start.
the start, good place to start would be the AL East manager. Alex Cora of the Red Sox. They're the last place in the American League East right now. Yankees are in first place. Tampa Bay is a game out of first coming into today. The Blue Jays are, I think, 2 games above 500 right now, if I'm not mistaken.
2 below.
2 below. Okay,
Yeah.
2 below. And then Baltimore's in fourth place,
Uh-huh.
which I would also really love to talk about the Orioles at some point. But I figure, the AL East would be a great place to start. Just how do you see how have you seen that division so far? What's kind of stood out to you there, and what do you kind of foresee playing out throughout the rest of the season? Given that how many games are we in? Like only 30 something, right?
Yeah.
So
Plus minus, plus minus,
plus
35.
minus. So you still got a lot of season left here.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see what you think just from the top down of that division, from the Yankees to the Red Sox and everything in between there, 1 through 5.
Everybody thought that this division would be, electric and really, really close. Obviously Toronto starting off very, very slow, and I think Schneider has talked about the best time to have this type of slow start is now, but they gotta eventually pick it up. And I think I talked about last time when we did a brief little preview when we recorded virtually together, that I think that they will pick it up.
Okay, so you still have faith in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
My confidence hasn't wavered in that.
They did get Trey Savage back the other day, which was nice for them to get him back. But yeah, I think I wouldn't give up on that. It's not too surprising. I'd say a little bit of that World Series hangover. That probably plays a big part into it. They've had a couple of injuries and things that they've had to deal with. But yeah, I wouldn't give up on that. They're only two out. I'm sure in the wild card, they're not totally far out of that either. But sitting at third, I'd honestly like to talk about the Rays a little bit. I think them being back at Tropicana Field instead of playing those games at Steinbrenner Field that they were doing last year has made a tremendous difference for them.
Uh-huh.
That's an organization that's always they've always been ran really well in terms of like a front office standpoint. They might not put a lot of money into it, and that's something I really want to get into. And we'll save that for the NL West at the end, and we'll tie a bow on it. But to kind of set the stage with that, just to build, crescendo it in there, would be a team like Tampa Bay, for example, who our entire lifetime, Tampa Bay has always been like the little engine that could, if you will. They don't have the Dodger money, or the Red Sox and the Yankees, or the Phillies, the Giants. They're not spending like that, but they have success that maybe even some of those teams, maybe not the World Series title per se, but they've come closer than a lot of organizations that spend more money.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of maybe not down years, but maybe they've been building up their farm system. They still have a lot of guys who haven't even come to the big leagues yet. That's not a bad team even currently right now. They're always a competitive organization, which I respect.
Yeah, and I love Junior Caminero, bro.
Oh yeah,
he's so nice.
Yeah.
He's so good.
Oh yeah.
And you know what? Credit where credit is due. I did not expect Tampa Bay to be in this position where they are right now. I thought Baltimore. I expected a little bit more out of Baltimore. Bringing in Taylor Ward from the Halos here in our backyard, signing Polar Bear Pete. I think Polar Bear has struggled a little bit to get going. Taylor Ward will have those moments and stretches where he's just an absolute home run smasher. But I don't know enough per se about what's going on with Baltimore, other than the fact that they took 2 or 3 on the Giants. So that's really the only opportunity that I had to watch them. And just on Boston, and I'll talk about this with Philly as well. When a team in any sport fires their manager that early in a season, it just screams a desperation move, where it's maybe the GM or hierarchy upstairs feel like their job is on the line. And this is just the way that, obviously we know that the sports world goes. The coach is always the first one to go.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened with Boston. And I remember, in our last recording, I was like, I don't think many people, thought Boston would have a slow start as such, but they're there, and they pulled a desperation move and fired Alex Cora. I don't know who their interim manager is. Well, I know we'll get there, but with Philly, which I thought was interesting. So Alex Cora got fired first, right?
Yeah.
Right after that, Dombrowski fires Rob Thompson, and Dombrowski was very clear and transparent, and he said, I offered Alex Cora the job, but Alex decided to not take it, and he wants to spend time with family. So it leads you to think, right? Philly, that's another desperation move right there. We all know the story with Dave Dombrowski and what he, and the desperation moves he makes when he knows his job is on the line. Did he fire Rob Thompson and basically say, let me go get Alex Cora? I think he'll accept it, and I think this will be the right move for the Phillies. Obviously, he didn't, and now Donnie Baseball, who never seems to leave the sport, bro. He's their interim manager. But both teams right there pulling an ultimate desperation move, and we'll see if it works out or it doesn't. So
yeah, that's a great point. I think both teams honestly are really worthy of a fascinating deep dive. Just to address one thing before we do that, you did mention kind of how in every sport, it doesn't matter which one it is, owners aren't going to fire themselves. That's not going to happen. And then general manager's not going to fire themselves.
Right.
And so someone has to go first, and the coach is always the easiest scapegoat because you can't just fire the players either.
Right,
It's not like, I think sometimes people have these like false expectations, like trades can just happen magically.
Right.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
especially
There's
when
gotta be a market for them. So
exactly like it's fun to like do these hypotheticals and whatnot, but they don't happen as often, for a reason. It takes time, and there's a deadline for a reason. Like
Mhm.
it builds into that, but I think with both team, with Boston, I think honestly, there's not enough talk about Boston in the sense of the noticeable shift that they've made in our lifetime, especially in the last decade. There's not enough media coverage, I think partly because the media doesn't really want to go in on a Red Sox like that. But I think there should be a much larger conversation about an organization with the success and the history that the Red Sox have had to do what they've done, which is basically cost cut
Mhm.
over many years.
Mhm.
And because of media expectations, there's this false narrative that like, oh, this is totally shocking because it's the Red Sox. But if you really look into it, they've been trending in this direction for about a decade now. You could go back as far as, when their general manager hierarchy shifted a little bit due to the front office wanting to basically stop spending as much money. And there's no and a lot of times, and we'll talk about this, where money doesn't always equate to success.
Mhm.
But in the Red Sox case, they had, like Mookie Betts is the perfect example. An organization like the Red Sox, not to say that the Red Sox and Dodgers haven't made trades before, but that was a different time. If you go back in the vault to like the Adrian Gonzalez,
Right, Beckett.
Josh
Mhm.
Beckett
Carl
trade, like
Crawford. Yeah.
they've done business
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
but this was, like the trading Mookie Betts at that time, doing that was an organizational shift.
Yeah.
And everything before then, at that point and until now, I think media has led to like false expectations. Like, yeah, okay, they got some good players, some good young players and prospects and whatnot. But I don't think it's that surprising that they're in last place. And I think it was probably inevitable that they would fire Alex Cora, I would say. Right. I mean, like you said, someone has to get fired. And honestly, I don't really know what type of a difference that's. I mean, normally when you fire a coach like that, one of two things happens. Either you get the interim boost or the team completely capitulates.
Mhm.
For one of the two.
Mhm.
Um, and then you mentioned with the Phillies, you mentioned Dave Dombrowski. Dave Dombrowski at one point was with the Red Sox.
Mhm.
Ironically, he's been around the block. He's with the Tigers, and Dave Dombrowski's always had this reputation of, kind of like in football. A lot of people talk about the Rams like fuck those first round picks.
Yeah.
Dave
Yeah.
Dombrowski's like a fuck them prospects
Yeah.
kind of guy.
Yeah. We'll
He
salvage a future just for just for half a season to try and make something happen.
that's
Yeah.
always been
Yeah.
his mo.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's of a different philosophical organizational mindset than other general managers,
Yeah.
especially in today's climate. And the Phillies have been really good for the
Mhm.
last couple of years.
Mhm.
I think out of the two of them, I would say the Phillies are more likely to have some sort of a season resurgence
Yeah.
if it were to happen. Um, you know, Shout out Donnie Baseball, by the way, Don
Yeah.
Mattingly, and I know we'll talk about this. They walked off your Giants twice in one day.
Yeah.
We'll get into that later, but that's a team that I think in many ways probably hasn't been as proactive as they should have. Like they've got good players, but it is an aging team, and they've played a lot of baseball over the years.
Yeah.
Um, So we'll see. Maybe this is a year where maybe they take a little bit of a maybe they don't make the playoffs this year. They reset for a year. Maybe next year. Maybe this year they make a run with Donnie Baseball at the
Mhm.
helm as the
Mhm.
interim, and the pitching's still really good. But I think the hitting has really been the big issue.
Yeah.
They did win today, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've been playing a little bit better,
Yeah.
ironically, since they fired Rob. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
don't think it was Rob's fault, but
Yeah.
sometimes, like we mentioned, sometimes you get
Mhm.
that interim boost, and maybe it lights a spark under the players, like, oh shit, like we got to start performing now. Like they let
Yeah.
go of our
They've
guy.
won 5 of 6 since,
Um,
so yeah.
yeah, so I definitely think out of those two teams, the Phillies are more likely, and we'll get to the NL East when we get to it, but that's another interesting division. Um, especially on the subject of managers.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the one team we haven't, there are two teams I think in the AL East we've yet to really touch on have been the Orioles and then the Yankees. The Orioles are fascinating. They have a first-year manager, Craig Alvarez.
Alvarez.
Um,
I wanted him.
you mentioned that they added, guys like Pete Alonso. They traded Grayson Rodriguez to the Halos for Taylor Ward. That's an interesting organization, to be honest with you, because if we would have done, a couple years ago, I don't think we said it on here, and if we didn't, I mean, we talked about it, but the Orioles at one point have probably what you would consider one of the brighter futures in the league
Yeah.
at one point. They were
Yeah.
one of those up and coming teams that it just felt like they had all the right things going for them. And then somewhere along the lines, they didn't play their deck of cards as
Right.
well as they
Yeah.
could have. And they've regressed in many ways in a short period of time. And they've just been kind of mediocre the last couple of seasons after what was probably a very, admittedly, in my opinion, bright future. And I've been a bit disappointed in that. But I'm not totally shocked by that in the sense that, it's been coming for a couple of years now as well. That they've kind of, a lot of the guys that they had as prospects, as top, they had a lot of guys, they had a lot of hitting prospects, and either they traded some of them never really got a shot in the big leagues, and they just kind of toiled away in the minor leagues. They've had a couple of guys that maybe haven't performed to the level that you would have expected them to with their prospect status. The pitching hasn't been that great. They added Shane Baz from the Rays.
Hmm.
He's been pitching a little bit better recently. I think they invested quite a bit in him. They gave up quite a bit to get him last year, and then they signed quite a bit to keep him. But that's a new ownership group as well, so I'll be interested to kind of see how that continues to play out. And then the Yankees are the Yankees. I mean, they're nothing really that they haven't been for the last couple of years. I don't think it's any better or worse. I think, some people might say maybe in the media, like, oh, this is the best Yankees team they've had. I mean, I think it's just, it's a good team, but like, it's not like the greatest team since sliced bread either. But
Right. Yeah.
but
Definitely not.
yeah, I think the top three teams in that division, I think will all have a chance to make the playoffs. Tampa Bay, Toronto, and the Yankees. And then the Red Sox, I think they're in an interesting spot for sure. Crochet's definitely struggled. He's on the IL right
Mhm.
now. You mentioned Ranger Suarez
Yeah.
earlier. He went out just today, right?
Yeah. He got pulled
Um,
hamstring tightness, and he was finally getting going.
and that's a bummer, man.
2.77 ERA, 0.95 WHIP, sub 1 WHIP, and he got pulled.
And that's a
At least
bummer.
it's not nothing
Ironically
with the
coming from
arm.
the Phillies
So
too.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
speaking of arm, we'll get to this division right now. Maybe a nice segue. Speaking of pitchers coming out, I saw earlier that Joe Ryan came out with elbow tightness after 9 pitches
Oh.
earlier, which is never a good sign. Hopefully, that comes back good. But you never like to hear those words. But yeah, before we get to the AL Central, any last thoughts on the AL East?
Yeah, just about Boston, obviously, I think a lot of their fans don't like Liverpool because of Fenway's involvement there, and
Yeah,
they've had to shift money and resources, as you talked about, and
that's in it. There we go. There's that cross sport thing there we go.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. There you
But
go.
with the Yankees, give them credit. Garrett Cole isn't back yet.
Yeah, I'm
Rodon
excited to
isn't
see what he
back
does
yet.
when he comes back.
So
So
their rotation can be
filthy.
electric,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
I will say on paper, definitely. I mean, the Yankees are up there with one of the best teams in the league for sure. They'll have as good a shot as anybody to win it all this season. Um, this current group of players has kind of been knocking on the door for the last couple of years. Obviously they lost to the Dodgers in the World Series a couple of years ago. Um, that's another team where I think, we were mentioning a team like the Phillies. The only difference being is that the Yankees are in first place and the Phillies aren't. But that they've had a lot of success, even if they haven't won the damn thing. Like they've won a lot of games over the years. Wow, what a shot!
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, I will say I do think this is a really good Yankees team. I give credit where it's due because I think they've made some nice moves, like getting Ryan Weathers was a nice ad. The pitching's been good for them. Freed, when he's healthy, he's always, hopefully Cole comes back. Rodon, you mentioned. That Cam Schlittler guy's fucking filthy too, by the way. I mean, he throws some abs. I don't know how you hit that thing. I really don't. And then your Savage too coming back, like those sort of guys. I mean, those are some nasty fucking pitches. I mean, I don't know how you hit something like that. It's coming not only the velocity and the spin rate, but like it moves in a way that something shouldn't move like that, but it does. I give credit where it's due to the Yankees and to the Rays, and I've always liked that the fact that they're both in the same division and they both have won the division in our lifetime numerous times, and they've done it in different ways. The Yankees with the flashy payroll and the big, the media attention, and then there's the Rays kind of tucked in St. Pete over there, and they don't spend a ton of money, and then they play at the Trot, and I mean last year they did not because of the hurricane, but now they're back at the Trot, and it's kind of like the Moneyball A's back in the day. Other teams that we'll highlight that kind of do more with less, even though they might not spend. They know how to constantly be proactive, and they know how to keep churning out consistently great prospects, and they just keep that cycle going. It's like a well-oiled machine. And I always enjoy watching that organizational building process. But moving on to the AL Central, I think in our entire lifetime, the AL Central has always been consistently meaty.
Division,
I think it's always been that way. It's more or less, especially probably the last decade plus.
We're probably going to breeze right through this division, man. There's nothing
that it hasn't been.
Not a whole lot of headlines.
No. I will say a couple things just to kind of, we'll probably breeze through it, but just to highlight a couple of things with each of the teams. I know Cleveland's in first right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland's also one of those teams. Ironically, something I think a lot of people don't talk about, speaking of ownership, is that, you've got the Knicks and the New York Rangers with one Dolan brother, and then if you got the other one with the Cleveland Guardians, and then the Guardians are another team that they don't spend a lot typically, but they kind of do more with less. They promoted their one of their top prospects, former number one pick, Travis Pisana, he came out of Oregon State, Australian dude. Chase the Ladders had a pretty good year for them. Parker Messick on the mound's been really good. So they're another team that's always kind of done more with less. And Jose Ramirez, shout out to him. He's probably one of, if not the best player that nobody in the media talks about because he plays for Cleveland, but he's an incredible player. He's absolutely one of the best players and has been for a long time. The story with Cleveland is the same story that it's been every year for as long as I can remember. They're going to be able to pitch. They've got a couple of good individual hitters, but are they going to be able to get enough production from their lineup? Is there enough juice in there to finally kind of get them over the hump? Kind of like we talked about last year with Milwaukee. There was a lot written about Detroit in the offseason, with Skubal and then adding Framber Valdez. That's going to be an interesting team to kind of monitor what they do and what Skubal kind of does. There's the White Sox that are just kind of there. But shout out to our guy Munetaka Murakami.
Yeah.
Leading the league in homers right now. I honestly can't believe that the White Sox were able to get him for that cheap of a contract at the time. And granted, I didn't think he'd be leading the league in homers right now, but good for him. Perfect modern day hitter. He's not going to hit anything higher than 230. But when he hits the thing, that's kind of that's the new age hitter right there. I will say I think the White Sox have done a better job than I would probably want to give an organization like that credit for kind of, they got a couple of young prospects that are kind of exciting. And
finally, man,
it took them a long time.
Yeah.
But it's like, we always like to say a broken clock can be right twice a day. And we'll talk about, the White Sox and the Bulls and all that, and the connection there at some point. There's the Twins. that's the team that I feel really bad for the fan base.
Yeah, I know that
Uh,
they want their owner to sell, and
they deserve a lot more.
yeah,
They're another team that they've over the years maybe done more with less, but they've definitely done a little bit of they're in their rebuilding phase right now, and they're gonna just keep adding young players and prospects, and like last year, I thought they did great. We mentioned Dave Dombrowski, Trader Dave. Them being able to go and get a guy like Mick Abel
right,
and
right,
and
right.
and, and
For
Andrew
Joan,
Painter
uh-huh,
for Duran.
uh-huh,
We mentioned Dombrowski. That's his MO. I
uh-huh.
thought that was honestly great business by Minnesota. Them getting Taj Bradley
Oh yeah,
from
that's
the
right.
Rays.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
been really good this year.
yeah.
Um, so they, I'll give credit to them for that. And then, what was the last team in that division we haven't touched on is Kansas City. And, they're trying to get a new ballpark. There's a lot of talk about that. We talked about this, I think, 3 years ago on here, which is I honestly forgot about that until just now. But, um, shout out Salvador Perez. I always had a lot of respect for that guy, but that's a team that's kind of mired in mediocrity at the moment. And, um, I don't really see any immediate success coming. I think they're at the bottom of the division. They'll probably stay there. I don't. I mean, maybe they can go on a little bit of a run. I mean, they're only how many games out of there
Three
first
and a
place?
half.
3.5. Yeah, it's a long season, but I've been disappointed by Kansas City.
Me too. Me too.
Um,
Yeah. I thought they would build off of what they did and go into the division series, losing to the Yankees, and
kind of
I love
similar,
Bobby Witt.
kind of similar to Baltimore in a lot of
Right,
ways.
right, right.
Although I think I had probably more faith in Baltimore, but yeah, Kansas City, man, it just disappointed, in that it just feels like they haven't been able to mesh the pieces there for a couple years now.
Because I like him. I like Michael Garcia.
That's right. They got some good
Um,
players, man.
and then who Reagan's. So I mean,
Yeah,
they have pieces, and you know what? I'll give them credit. They tried last season. They went out on the deadline and they
they added some
tried to
guys,
get
right?
what they could. From with what was available, and it's just not working out. So yeah, definitely disappointed in them for sure. I thought they could make things interesting with Detroit and Cleveland. But funny with your note on Murakami. There's been a meme circulating on IG, and you have a media member asking, Murakami, like, why do you think you're going to be successful in the league? And, he just says, uh, in his accent, power, power. He doubled down on that. And then it's just a clip of him hitting absolute bombs, in,
Yeah.
with the White Sox. So I thought that's
That's
super
funny,
cool. And
man. Oh
you
yeah.
know what? Something to be excited for the Chicago White Sox. I'm happy for their fan base because they've
Yeah.
been,
That's a
in the
fan base that
dumpster
also deserves a lot of success.
for sure, for sure.
Um, that's an organization that I think they're one of those teams. I think it would be fun to see them like back in the mix, back in the playoffs, or at least competing. I think that would be. They're in many ways. I think they're the sleeping giants of the division. They should be a lot more than what they are, and
Yeah.
if they can build more into it, I think maybe in a couple of years we might look back and maybe that's one of those a broken clock sort of thing. But yeah, let's move on to the AL West. Yeah, with the AL West, there are a couple. There honestly, I want to hit all 5 of these teams a lot.
It's a garbage division. At this moment, at this moment in time, it's
I'm
a
gonna
garbage division.
I'm gonna start with the team in first place and the
Yeah,
team in
yeah,
last place.
yeah.
I think the Athletics. I think there's a good chance they can win the division this year.
Yeah.
And that listen, that lineup can swing it. They can score a lot of runs. The top of that lineup's really good. Shea Langoliers has been really good behind the dish. He's been swinging a really hot bat to start the year.
Maybe I should have kept him in fantasy, bro. Maybe I should have. But I ended up getting Hunter Goodman from Colorado.
He's been pretty good too, though.
He's been decent.
He's
so.
been pretty good too. But you know what? Look, man, Shea Lang. Listen, we could talk about that because I like Jose Soriano. He's gone, and there's another guy. I forgot. It's gonna come back to me in a little bit. With with the A's, man, I think they're in Sacramento right now. They'll be in Vegas in a couple years. Something that I would love to do a further deep dive on, not only today but in future times, is like, you know, it was a very obvious thing. Like, we talked about Moneyball. Like, they never spent any money. That's been talked about by a lot of people that they didn't spend a lot of money. It was Moneyball A's, and then there was that period of time when they were trying to move the team to Vegas, and they really just like they sapped the bitch, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they really they sucked the air out of that team. So and now as soon as they've been in Sacramento, they've committed more money to re-signing guys.
Uh-huh.
They're kind of making more
Handed
of a
Severino a fat deal, which made no sense.
like Tyler Soderstrom's a guy they locked down for a minute. They've been on an upward trajectory now. Nick Kurtz hasn't even really gotten going yet. He was outstanding last year. He's one of the best hitters when he's on. He's he's going to get it going at the dish. And he's one, listen, I think there's a good chance I would have them winning the division. The one maybe flaw of the team, quote unquote, would be their pitching. They've had some decent pitching, honestly, probably maybe better than most would have expected. I do think they've got some really good pitching prospects that are in the wings that could come up sooner than later as well. A couple of nice lefties, especially that are really a couple. Yeah, they got some nice guys that are waiting in the wings that they've added in the draft in the last couple of years. And then the Angels, man. Holy smokes, man. I would love to extend, obviously neither one of us are Angels fans, but, it's in our backyard. We know a lot of Angels fans. And, I would love to do some kind of like Angels fan therapy sort of thing, like with all because I feel bad for the people, man, like people that I love and respect. And I think that deserve the Angels to be good. And you want to talk about ownership, like, holy smokes, man.
You hear about this rodent infestation at one of their? They had to close off a section. Because...
Honestly, forget the rodent infestation. Did you see the meme with Artie, man? Like, forget the rat. Honestly, dude, fuck the rats. Like, let them enjoy the infestation. Let them have fun. Make a bunch of rodent babies and have a blast. Like, to me, I think the part with the Angels that, like, we really just need to beat it to death. And I want to beat the Angels to death right now so that the Angels fans that we know and love can come on here and put gasoline on the flame that we're about to light. Because I really want to kick the shit on the Angels a little bit right now. Like, it's really sad, man. It's really sad. I mean, shout out Jose Soriano, by the way, who's probably been one of the best pitchers in the sport. Best ERA in baseball right now. I think it's an 0.83 ERA right now. He's been money. You talk about fantasy baseball. I'd regret that every day. Hey, you know what? That's how life goes. But yeah, Jose Soriano is an amazing pitcher, man. But yeah, dude, there was a big thing that came out before the season where, Artie Moreno kind of comes out and, they basically talk about like, and maybe we can pull this up. I'd have to pull out the.
Are you talking about his quote about the fact that Angel fans love coming not because they want to win, but because it's affordable and safe?
Yeah, there you go, man.
Okay, yeah.
Number one thing, they want affordability. Believe it or not, winning is not in the top five. Now, the one caveat I'll give to that is I think in a utopian society, people want affordability and a competitive fucking baseball team. So you can shove it up, as far as, you know what I mean? Like, you can make the game, you can make it cheap and have a good team. Two things can be true at once. So let's kick that to the curb right there. Like, but it's just really sad, man. I feel so bad for the Angels, like right now. And I want to shout out the Ducks for beating my Edmonton Oilers real quick. I never thought I would live to see the day where Anaheim Ducks tickets are more expensive than the LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights right now.
Well, good on them for capitalizing on it.
You know what? There's a lot of demand there.
I'm not hearing anything. We live in Orange County, bro. I haven't heard a peep about the Ducks beating the Oilers and advancing.
But you know what?
I'm talking about from people, like I saw.
I know there's a couple of people shout out that we'll shout out to a couple.
I don't think anybody cares. I don't think anybody cares, man.
Nobody cares about the Ducks. Quack, man. Oh man.
And listen, that's the same deal. Obviously, I grew up in San Jose. Okay, I grew up in San Jose. You know what? And we had, they had the
But
time with
yeah,
Marlowe, Thornton, all that. They haven't won a cup, all that jazzy stuff. But I mean, it's an afterthought. Bro. That's an afterthought. But sorry, sorry for the tangent. Back to
no,
the Angels.
that's good, man.
I
We
think
could always use a good hockey tangent, man.
you know,
Fuck the Ducks, huh? Fuck the Ducks.
Yeah, man, the Ducks, the Kings. You know me, I'm not a big hockey guy, but if anybody asks me, I'm a Sharks fan, and we'll get there, with Macklin and with the guys. So I'm not worried about them, but credit to that guy. What's his name? Quinville, the guy that was in the controversy with the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So good on them. And when I was younger, my dad worked at Broadcom, and their CEO was Samueli before he sold to an Indonesian company, Avago. Anyways, I used to go to Ducks games because they would give out free tickets to the games because Samueli owns the team. So I used to go to a few Ducks games, but that's pretty much all I got for you there. With the Angels, you know what? I only go to their games because I got a good friend of mine who loves them to a fault, and I'll only go because that's the one time where I'm like at a baseball game where I can like just simply just chill and breathe easy. I don't got a horse in the race. I don't care who wins or loses. This year, unfortunately, the Giants won't be in Anaheim. Anaheim will visit SF, and that's their series this year. But I mean, you know what? Obviously, in 2002, they beat the Giants. I was 3 years old, so I've only seen highlights and everything. And it's kind of sad that the San Francisco Giants allowed this garbage of a franchise to win that title. It really is. It frankly is sad, especially the fact that they were up 3-2 and Dusty choked. We all know the whole story there, but it is sad that my San Francisco Giants allowed that to happen. But
no, it's sad. Man.
It's not going to change anytime soon, as long as Artie Moreno's there. So.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what? At least the guy they drafted last year, second overall, Tyler Brenner out of Santa Barbara, has been too bad. But you know what? Yeah. Look, man, I feel bad for the Angels fans out there, man. Look, I'm glad that I will look. At least look, tickets are cheap. It should stay that way. Knock on wood. But I would love for the tickets to remain cheap and for them to be at least somewhat at least have somewhat like a little bit of optimism,
Yeah.
It's the same shit every year, man.
Right.
Like, they Angels fans that I know and talk to are like, it's almost like a state of apathy. I feel bad that they have to like that there's a lot of untapped potential there.
You know how I always love to mess with Vince. I'll be like, "Hey Vince, bro, it's Friday night.
Let's go to Angels game, man.
There's a Mike Trout bobble. Like, let's go. Like, we'll gather all the squad and
dude,
let's get out there."
Having a
and it's always the same answer from him. No, I'm not doing it. No, and he knows I'm messing with him, but still. And I had to drag our boy out one time when the Giants were in town to go to the Angels game because my older brother was going and then our other homie was going, and the gambler was pitching, and that's the only time he went to a game, in my many years of knowing our good friend. That's the only time he went to a game.
We'll have to have him talk about the Angels next time he's on.
Oh, please! I would love it, dude. That would be an instant hit. That would be I would love it.
Yeah, we'll put that on YouTube with his marketing ability, and that's just numbers for sure.
We need a proper rant, and heck, maybe the Angels brass will listen to it. I had because I bought bullshit tickets to the game. I had an Angels person call me, and I think I told you guys the story. I answered the phone. I said, hello, who's speaking? And it was a sweet woman. She works for the Angels ticket sales or whatever. And she says, I noticed you bought a game, Angels Giants. Is this something that, do you live around the area? And I said, yeah, I'm in South Orange County. I only go to games when the Giants are in town. And she's like, there's no other reason that you would go to a game? I said, no, there isn't. I have no business attending Angel home games beyond that. And she's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for answering the call. I told you guys about this, but yeah, I mean that's
funny,
the type of level that they've gone to, man. They're looking at the databases and calling a San Francisco Giants fan who just lives in Orange County about persuading me to go to more Angel games. Hell no, I'm good off all that.
Send this to Artie Moreno, man. Put this on the marketing thing. Send this to Artie. Someone will send it to him. Honestly, man, I will go so far as to say this, and I say this in as like humble of a way as possible. But I really do believe I will nominate the stars of the Unfiltered Report, and I say this humbly. I really believe that if we could run the Angels,
yeah, we'll do a much better job.
Yeah. We'll save the Angels. So
now listen, if you, I got no business saving them. That's not on me, and I don't plan on doing that. I got to go save my own team, for God's sake.
Well, we'll get to that at the end. But we'll get to that. But I'm just saying, if we put, what I'm saying is, we'll put you with the Giants, 100%. And then we'll take our other superstar, put them with the Angels, and we'll save baseball that way.
We'll be competing for World Series.
So basically, send this to Artie Moreno and be like, listen, brother, like you want to save yourself, you want to make $1 bajillion and have a good team. Bang the line, man. The unfilteredreport@gmail.com. You can email us, maybe. We'll email him. Fucking someone will send this to him. Send this to Artie Moreno. Fucking hell, man. Anyway, didn't mean to bag on the Angels that much. Or maybe I did. I don't know, man. I just kind of had that, we could keep going. But then you got a team who's right above them in 4th place in the Astros right now.
Ooh, I can't wait to talk about both Texas teams.
Oh, boy. Where do you want to start? Texas Rangers or Houston Astros?
Start off with the Astros. It is looking more and more like their time to do another rebuild has come in full effect.
Oh,
yeah. Their rotation is completely banged up. I remember talking about that the last time we chatted about baseball. No Christian Javier, Tatsuya Imai, Hunter Brown, all injured. Hunter Brown, I kept him, and he started off excellent, and he's been shelved on the IL, and I don't think he's coming back. They're saying until late May, even because of a shoulder thing. So, I like Hunter Brown a lot. I think he's electric. I swooped him in the 10th round, and was a Cy Young finalist. And he started off great, and that's happened. And you know what? I think they are trying to delay it, but with the season that they're having right now, they have to do it. Obviously, they didn't bring back Alex Bregman, and then they signed Christian Walker. That's been a disaster from Arizona. Remind me, who'd they trade? It was Kyle Tucker, right?
Kyle Tucker,
Chicago. And they brought back Isaac
Cam
Paredes,
Smith,
right?
Cam Smith and Isaac Paredes.
Paredes hasn't been that good. And then their other position players, Carlos Pena, their catcher, what was his name? Yandy Diaz, is it?
Yeah. Jeremy Pena's been hurt. They've had Correa at short since Pena's been on the IL. I think with Houston, it's an interesting thing where they're a team where they have a couple of nice. I mean, look, Yordan Alvarez is spectacular. He's one of those, that the Dodgers front office will definitely say, like, oh yeah, we let that one slip a little bit, letting him go when he, in a deadline trade many moons ago. I think they're probably for the first time since their rebuild many moons ago, about a decade ago, when they were the worst team in baseball, but they had, they were building up slowly but surely. They sucked for many years. They took Correa first overall. They had Altuve in the minor leagues, who was hitting like 350 in the minor leagues once upon a time. They took Bregman high up in the draft. Like they had, it took a lot of losing, a lot of building up,
and hit on draft picks.
They hit on all those guys, and so they're not totally bereft of talent necessarily. Like the guy, you mentioned Isaac Paredes, like Cam Smith's a pretty solid player. Jeremy Pena, when he's healthy, is pretty solid. Jordan Alvarez, obviously one of the best hitters in baseball. It's been good to see him healthy and on this season. I think he's second, I think, in homers right now, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, I mean, the pitching's just been banged up. And when you have that much that's lacking in it's hard to win when you don't have the pitching.
Yeah.
Um, but then, yeah, you mentioned the Texas Rangers. I mean, they're an interesting case study as well. They had that almost feels like a flash in the pan sort of season with your guy Bochy,
Yeah.
and everything before that and after that and has just kind of been about the same. Um, I don't know how you feel about the Rangers.
It's a transition year for them. Bringing in Skip Schumacher, I think, was the best hire out of the candidates available. I think he's a great manager with what he had to work with in the Marlins, and he got them in the wild card. That Marlins team. So I think that was a great hire, slam dunk hire. Um, they did bring in Mackenzie Gore. Obviously, we know him from his time in San Diego. Was part of the Juan Soto trade.
That's right. That's
And
right.
he showed great flashes in Washington, and DC capitalized, and um, Texas took him in, and he's doing okay. He's not doing anything, earth shattering by any stretch, especially for what Texas
I
gave
like
up.
Mackenzie Gore, but yeah, he hasn't.
He's been okay so
He
far.
hasn't hit that groove yet.
Yeah, exactly. Good on Texas for getting rid of Simeon's contract,
Yeah.
bringing in Brandon Nimmo. So
Well,
they made some nice moves for sure. And at this point, I don't think for them, it was with a new manager and everything and those moves that I just outlined. It's not necessarily that they expect to make the playoffs this year. I just think they want to be a little bit more competitive and then build with a new generation. Obviously, Adolis Garcia is with Philly now, so the pieces that they had to win the World Series ain't necessarily there. Evaldi's getting older, so I want to see what they do next year with year two under Skip. Corey Seager, are they going to try and move him? Do they, while he still has some value, stuff of that nature? So I'm curious to see what they want to do.
yeah. Yeah, one guy I want to kind of highlight is Wyatt Langford. He's one of those guys that, it feels like in every sport, there's always a couple guys that the media, when you read like certain articles and stuff, like they like you read, if you'd never watched the player and you read what's said about the player, you'd think that player's like the greatest player or will be the great, like some of the things that I've seen said about Wyatt Langford over the years, even when he was at Florida in college. He got drafted a couple years back. That was the year where, Dylan Cruz got drafted by the Nationals that year. Um, the Paul Skeens. It was all that same year, and this Wyatt Langford guy. I don't know. It's fascinating to me because it feels like in every sport there's always that player that gets talked about in a way that like you want to believe it because of what people keep saying, but like it just I don't know. Like the one difference, the caveat I'm trying to make is like there are some players like when they get hyped up like that, sometimes they live up to the hype, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you believe it, sometimes you don't, and then sometimes you want to believe it. And he's that one instance I think that it's like because I want to believe it, but I haven't seen it, but I still believe it's there somewhere. I know he's on the IL right now. It's just a fascinating case because, like, this isn't even what I would say. I'm just saying, like, what you read. Like, there was one guy I read. It was like there's an article I read, and they were saying like, oh, he's been the best hitter in spring training or some shit like that. And obviously, that doesn't mean squat, but like, they've been gassing this guy up for a long time as having a lot of talent. And he does have a lot of talent, but it just hasn't really been able to stay healthy and have it fully click. And I hope it does for his sake. And, the Rangers, yeah, they're in a little bit of a transition period right now. They should definitely look to, if they can, continue flipping players, building up that farm system and allowing the new wave of Texas Rangers to kind of come in because there is kind of in many ways, a power vacuum in that division right now.
Mhm.
That's why I mentioned. I think honestly, the A's very well could be the team to win that division. And the one team we haven't talked about yet, Seattle Mariners. We talked about the Blue Jays kind of having like a little bit of like a World Series hangover. The Mariners, in many ways, have had a losing in Game 7 to Toronto hangover a little bit. It did feel like last year there were a lot of things that went their way, and those same things maybe haven't been breaking their way so far this year.
Okay.
So I'll be interested to see what happens with them for the rest of the season. I wouldn't kind of similar to Toronto. I wouldn't totally count them out. But
just wait for J-Rod to get going. He's always it's the same story with J-Rod.
Slow start every year, and he gets going around June.
Yeah.
Same story every year. It's just like Kyle Schwarber.
Right.
Every year has to during I believe my guy was telling me during Hoagie month or something like that is when Kyle Schwarber gets hot every year. Which I think is maybe a good transition now. Move over to the NL East.
Yep.
We kind of mentioned that with the Texas Rangers as well, and some of the other teams making some trade. There was some trades within those two divisions. We talked about the Phillies.
Yeah.
But I think a great place to start in the NL East would be the Mets. Holy smokes, man. And this is all building towards the grand crescendo of our baseball conversation with the NL West.
Yeah.
But the Mets will be another case study in what we'll talk about with the NL West. And a little bit of propaganda, too. Where they've been dude, they've been talking about this David Stearns guy like he's the fucking Wizard of Oz, Wizard of Oz.
That's right. Yeah.
Dude, kind of like the Liam Rossini propaganda I was reading about. It's this David Stearns guy. He's got the same. They're paying good money to these outlets to publish these pieces, man. But him coming over from the Brewers, there was a lot of hype about him coming over, and Steve Cohen and the billionaire hedge fund money, and like fuck you sort of money. And he's going to bring all this money in, and they're going to be like the East Coast Dodgers. Come on, man.
It's a matter of hours and not days before Mendoza gets fired.
Are we putting a little countdown clock on here?
Yeah.
Because funny enough,
they're here in Anaheim.
Funny enough, what Dombrowski said about Rob Thompson, like a week before before Thompson got fired, they asked Dombrowski, like, are you thinking about, any, manager? No, we're not going to fire Rob. Like a week later, bada bing, bada boom. Article this week comes out. Oh, the Mets we're not going to fire Mendoza. Sets that up for, about a week later, which probably, like he said, it's a matter of if, not when. He'll get the axe as well. It just feels like everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong for them. But I think also it's just in many ways, it's maybe false expectations, kind of similar in many ways, like we were talking about with the Red Sox and stuff. Like, but the only caveat being is that they've got the money. The Mets kind of remind me a little bit of Matt Ishbia and the Phoenix Suns a little bit. Where Matt Ishbia's got a fuck ton of propaganda pieces out there too. It feels like every month there's something. New York Times, ESPN, give him a little bit of sloppy top. Oh, Matt Ishbia, you're so fantastic. Like, oh, Matt Ishbia, we love you to death. Like, he probably doesn't have much cum left in his balls, man. But like, I think it's very similar in the sense that, like, there's this this Matt Ishbia guy is going to come in and like revolutionize basketball, and he's going to fucking say, what he's revolutionized basketball. How Matt Ishbia has revolutionized basketball. He's made, it's like
he's made a championship window disappear in seconds.
You know what it is, man? It's like, as long as you pump out good pieces about yourself, you can never have anything bad said about you, So it's like, in many ways, and we'll get to basketball in a little bit, but like with the Phoenix Suns, like, honestly, yeah, they were pretty good this year, like all things considered. Like, honestly, I like the Kevin Durant. I think at the time I would have said the same thing, not to get sidetracked, but like I'll finish this point real quick and we'll go back to the NL East. But like with the Kevin Durant, like honestly, yeah, look, Dylan Brooks was pretty solid for them. had the best season of his career, especially offensively. He was, Jalen Green wasn't really healthy to the end of the year, and they got a first round pick out of that I think will be pretty solid for them maybe moving forward. They got some decent young players, but like, we'll talk about like with the tanking controversies over the coming days and weeks, like, Matt Ishbia is like what, like the perfect example. Like, we'd rather you spend a lot of money and be just good enough to where you're not at the bottom of the league, and we can give you these good pieces, and maybe you might have success, maybe you won't, but like, you're gonna like, that's like what I'm trying to get at with the Mets. Like, it's almost like the Gilded Age, with all the gold on the outside, but on
Mhm.
the inside, it's like a dying person
Yeah.
or dying something. And that's like with the Mets, like there's all this, oh, the Mets. They spent like, what was it, fucking 680 million, whatever the fuck they paid Juan Soto. Like, um, but spending money doesn't always equate to success.
No, no, no.
I think that's where a lot of people think that, like, and this is what we'll get to with the NL West at the end. Like, I think there's this false expectation that just because you have the money, you have to have the resources in many aspects. Yes, but you also have to put the right people in the room. You have to, you know, uh, you have to get the right people in the room. You can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, look, the Mets they're not a last place team in terms of like on paper talent, but they're a last place team because the pieces don't fit together. The construction's not fully there, and so like the players themselves, like Nolan McLean's incredible, right? And I give a lot of credit to them for having a guy like that. Like, he's got one of the nastiest pitches in the sport too. Like, he's really good. Um, they made the Bichette signing, which that whole thing was fascinating. But like, I don't know what the next step is. Like, okay, you fire Mendoza, just like, okay, Alex Cora, Rob Thompson. Okay, you fire Mendoza, maybe you get a little bit of an interim bump, maybe you don't. But I think they're an interesting organization where I think they really have to kind of look inwards a little bit, like, and kind of say, like, if, okay, you really want to be the East Coast Dodgers? Well, like, I haven't seen it yet. And I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that they're magically going to win a World Series in 2 years.
Anytime. So yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
any, and so you can put out all the, just like, maybe the point I'm trying to make is like, there was all this David Stearns propaganda, and they made the trade with Milwaukee for Freddie Peralta,
Mhm.
David Stearns' old team. Look, Freddie Peralta's a solid pitcher, man. He's fastball Freddie. It's
Yeah.
it's a joy to watch. But like, that was a smart trade for the Brewers as well,
Yeah.
to do that. And I think the Mets kind of got to look in the mirror a little bit and kind of reevaluate. Like, do we want to just be, because you can say all these things like, oh, we want success, we've got the money, blah 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 blah. But at a certain point, you kind of have to. At a certain point, are you getting that or not? Like, are you going to get to that place or not? But then, on the flip side of that, you mentioned this last time we kind of briefly touched on. You mentioned the Braves.
Yeah, they look good, man.
They
They look good.
Yeah, that Drake Baldwin guy can really swing the stick,
Mhm,
man.
mhm.
He's a joy to watch the play. It feels like every day he's doing something positive.
Michael Harris is
Michael
is finally
Harris,
coming back to himself.
Ozzy Albies,
As to why they gave him the money in
it's
the first
unfortunate,
place.
Ronald Acuna went on the IL this morning,
Right.
but Austin Riley, has been one of the more underrated players in baseball
Yeah.
for many years now.
Matt Olson is doing his thing this
Matt
year.
Olson's doing his thing, leading the league in RBIs.
Chris Sale is not aging yet.
Yeah, Chris Hill not aging one bit. He had a dominant start the other day. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, Chris Sale aging like fine wine, man. It's a joy to
Mhm.
watch him do his
Mhm.
thing. I got a lot of respect for the Atlanta Braves. They've been one of the more competitive organizations over the last
Properly
couple of
ran,
years.
yeah.
That that lineup of theirs is always, I think we would like last year, sometimes look, shit happens. You have injuries, maybe guys
Yeah,
have
yeah,
down years,
that's
shit
exactly what
happens.
happened.
But
Yeah,
as
yeah,
it didn't mean that they were a bad team. So
yeah.
it's not surprising in the slightest that they're right back into the thick of the
Weiss
bitch.
got him going.
Oh yeah, look, they made the perfect
Yeah,
tweaks where they needed
exactly,
to.
exactly.
They allowed, and you know what I give them credit for as well is they didn't overreact to last year,
Right, right.
and they brought back a lot of those same guys, and they said
Mhm,
these guys we're gonna bet on these players, and that
mhm,
okay they're gonna be healthier,
mhm.
they're gonna have better years at the plate, like on the mound, they're gonna bounce back, and I give a lot of credit for that as well because a lot of organizations, regardless of the sport, they overreact.
Yep, yep.
Um, so yeah, I really think that I give credit to the Braves. And then there's one team I want to highlight. There's two left, and I want to talk about both. But the first one I want to talk about Miami Marlins. They made a front office change a couple years ago. They brought in Peter Bendix from the Rays. And the Marlins have always been notoriously very cheap, always at the bottom of the league in payroll, which is in many ways really sad for a team that plays in Miami.
Exactly,
Like there's no
exactly.
reason that fan base and that city, with the they should be so they have honestly that might be the most depressing place to watch a baseball game over the years. Um, but when things like the World Baseball Classic roll around, you see what a baseball game in that city could look like. And when they brought in this Peter Bendix guy, I was interested to see how that was going to play out because, coming over from the Rays is like, okay, can you bring that Rays stick
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
Marlins?
yeah.
And you know what? I will say, I do think the Marlins are on the right path. Um, I think
They need to trade Sandy this deadline.
peak peak of that value,
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
build that farm. That's the
yeah,
smart, and that's why I want to say with the caveat, if they do what I think they'll do, they're on the right track.
yeah.
Like, Yuri Perez is one of my favorite young starters. Max Meyer's really good.
Mhm.
They got a lot of really good young arms. They got some great prospects that are
They
coming up in
traded
the farm
Cabrera.
system. Um, yeah, they traded Edward Cabrera. And Edward Cabrera is really good. We'll get to the NL
Mhm,
Central, but like,
mhm.
the lineup has been the one part that I've wanted to see them maybe develop. I think it's better than it's been.
Yeah.
And
A
if
lot
they
of
can,
contact guys, man. Apart from Stowers, you don't have any guys that are,
yeah,
smashing the ball. I'm talking
Liam
like
Hicks has had a
Xavier
very,
Edwards and
yeah,
whatnot.
one of the cool things about baseball, and we'll talk about this with the D-backs and a guy like Ildemaro Vargas, and then a guy on the Marlins like Liam Hicks. Like the cool thing about baseball is every year you'll get guys like that who will have seasons like that, where a guy like Ildemaro Vargas, 34, journeyman guy, and now it leads the league in batting average. I think he's like third in OPS right now. Um, just you get these like a guy like Liam Hicks. I think he's got 29 RBI, second in the league right now. Um, so you get these cool statistical outliers sometimes, or not outliers, but maybe the unexpected. Like I wouldn't have predicted before the season that Liam Hicks would be.
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about baseball that you get those. With just the way the sport is. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the Marlins can do. I think if they can keep building. Um, are they going to win the division this year? Perhaps not. Are they going to make the playoffs? I think they
No.
have, but I think they're building in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think maybe in a couple of years they'll be a team to look out for. Where like
yeah.
I'll throw them out there as like, you know, teams like there are not many young teams out there that you're like, oh, they got like a really bright future. I think they're one of those teams that I would highlight that we haven't really done as much. We talked a little bit about a couple earlier on. We touched on those, but they're a team that I would like to add into that mix. So like, hey, you know what? Like, I like what they're building. And then you mentioned them. You mentioned Mackenzie Gore with the Rangers,
Mhm,
with the Nationals. Um, they got some good young hitters, man. James Wood, C.J. Abrams.
mhm.
Uh, it feels like they've been really patient in their rebuild.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the fruits of their labor are nowhere close to being returned on anytime soon.
Mhm.
I think the Marlins are closer than the Nats,
Yeah.
but I don't think the Nats are maybe they've got some good foundational pieces at least that if they can keep building, adding some pieces here and there, building up the farm system, adding some more, depth to that farm. Maybe they could be back on the upswing because it wasn't too far long ago. Yeah, they were in the World Series.
Mhm.
So they're on their little organizational rebuild dip right now. But maybe we'll see them on the upside of the roller coaster at some point sooner than later. But they're kind of just in that middle tier in that division right now. Like they're just kind of they play competitive baseball. They hang around. They're not going to win the division. They probably won't make the playoffs, but they're not apathetically bad.
Yeah.
They compete.
They're just average,
Yeah, they're
they
just an
compete.
average team. Yeah, they compete. Yeah, exactly. They don't. They grind out at bats and
Mhm.
they try hard.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so we're gonna move now to the NL Central. You mentioned last time that that's gonna be the division of the year
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
terms of
it's looking like it.
and I don't think there's been anything to change that
Yeah.
from then till now in our
Mhm.
deep dive. Like,
Mhm.
I think all five of those teams are going to have a crack to win it. They're all going to
Mhm.
be in it, and I'll be interested to see what each of those teams does at the deadline to
Yeah.
maybe
To
try to make a
propel
run for
themselves.
it and propel themselves, and maybe they stand pat and bet on what they've got. But yeah, I think every team from 1 to 5 is within what 3.5 games, correct?
Yep, and all
With
over 500. Yeah.
all over 500. Way, not only the best division in baseball at the moment, but I give credit. I think they're all actually five really, at least this season, competitive teams.
Yeah.
Even Pittsburgh in last place, I would normally maybe come on here and, bet, that's an ownership group that probably hasn't gotten enough hate in media circles over the
Uh-huh.
years. And, um, I would say when it comes to the Pirates, that's also one of those like sleeping giant sort of teams.
Yeah.
Obviously Paul Skeens is incredible. Not much that we can say that hasn't already been said.
Bubba Chandler needs to get going, bro. I've heard too much hype about him.
That's
I
like the
don't.
Wyatt Langford
Right,
stuff
right.
that we were
I'm
talking
not. I'm not.
about.
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it.
So that's why sometimes I always like to bring in like the media element of what people might hear elsewhere versus like what we might chop it up and talk about,
Mhm.
not only today but moving forward, to kind of provide those parallels. But yeah, I think one team. There are two teams that I would really love to. Honestly, all five, but in addition to the Pirates, two teams that I would love to talk about: the Cincinnati Reds and the St. Louis Cardinals.
Mhm.
When it comes to the Reds, another sleeping giant, Cardinals sleeping giant. The Cardinals, when we were growing up as kids, they
Yep.
were they were like the Spurs and the
Mhm.
Patriots, man.
Mhm.
Model of
Mhm.
consistency. Um, on the Cardinals specifically, I think they're
Felt good to beat him in the playoffs.
hey, there you go, baby. They're. I think this is where they're starting to. They've been in a little bit of a rebuild for a couple of years now. First, they've had this weird organizational transition that I've honestly now hasn't been talked about enough about, where they had the current general manager waiting in the wings last year to take over the job of the guy who was in front of him, and now so and not that, and that's just the title thing. But my point is that they've got some nice young players. The Cardinals, shout out my guy JJ Weatherholt, West Virginia. Like they got a couple of nice pieces. Michael McGreevy on the mound, a couple other guys, some guys on the farm, um, and uh, then the Reds, they got some good young players too, man. Sal Stewart's been swinging the crap out of it his rookie year.
Tito Francona's got him.
Francona's
Yeah.
got the
Yeah.
juice going.
Yeah.
That pitching staff is nasty. Hunter Green hasn't even pitched an inning yet.
Crazy.
But they got that Chase Burns guy is incredible, man.
Mhm.
I love watching him pitch. I mean, he's a joy to watch. Definitely one of my favorites in the league to watch. They got some good young starters, man. Rhett Lauder, and he got roughed up the other day, but he's a good starter. Um, Andrew Abbott's been solid. Lodolo, like they got some good pitching, man. And the lineup, like I think honestly that to me the Reds, I think, I know that division's kind of clumped up. I don't know who's going to win it and which of those teams is going to make the playoffs, but I think the Reds will make the playoffs.
I agree. Yeah.
And then, there's the Cubbies sitting in first place right now. You mentioned the Edward Cabrera trade.
Yeah, they simply built on what they did last year. They knew that they needed pitching, and they went out and got Cabrera, which I think is great. They didn't let Kyle Tucker hostage them.
Yeah.
They knew that they weren't going to bring him in, so they just went ahead and found other areas to improve, and so far so good. And Craig Counsell he's a good manager, dude. He's a good manager, so I like him a lot. And STL surprised me a lot. I did not expect them to be in this
Jordan
position.
Walker, by the way, too.
Yeah,
Jordan Walker. I forgot to mention him. He made a tweak in his swing. He's been hitting dingers, it feels like, every other day. Besides him being interrupted. So St. Louis surprised you?
Yeah, and then you know what? Milwaukee does this time and time again. Kyle Harrison is looking like the prospect that I heard about in the Bay Area. And it stings that it's happening there and not in the Bay, but he's doing his thing.
Okay. I'm glad you bring that up, because we can honestly just go to the NL West while we do that, because that was what I wanted to bring up on talking about the Brewers, man. And I wanted to use that, and you beat me to it, and that's great that we're on the same page. Not that I'm surprised, man, because I really wanted to. First, before we go to the Giants, I do want to say, yes, the Brewers, that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do. I love watching Abner Uribe, over the years. Oh, and we didn't even mention with the Mets, like Devin Williams, listen, this Abner Uribe guy, listen, that's the difference, like, with the Mets and the Brewers, like the propaganda and the money and whatnot. Like, the Brewers might not have the money that the Mets do, but they're ran better than the Brewers. In that sense. And Abner, they had Hader and Devin Williams. This Abner Uribe guy, he's the next one. And then Kyle Harrison, dude, he's been money.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tapped into what he's got.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the perfect way to transition to your Giants, man. And I love you, man. We talked about the Angels earlier, and I wanted to throw a little bit of gasoline and do that. And you've come on here, and I love listening to you talk about the Giants, and I want to join you and kind of kicking on the Giants a little bit. Bottom of the NL West, just completely, in shambles right now in the current stretch that they're in. What did you say to me earlier?
Back-to-back sweeps.
Back-to-back sweeps with the 8 games under 500 right now.
Yeah.
Rafi Devers can't get going at the plate.
Yeah.
Willie can't get going at the plate. Matt Chapman can't get going at the plate.
And those guys are all making $30+ million.
Their pitching has been Tony Vitello. There's a lot being written about Tony V these days. But listen, man, they're in that same conversation. The teams we've been dogging on the Angels, and we dogged on the Red Sox a little bit. Like, we got to dog on the Giants a little bit, man. Like, the Kyle Harrison's one, and then, James Tibbs as well.
Mm-hmm.
James Tibbs now with the Dodgers miraculously in the minor leagues. I don't know how the fuck that happens. It's not like they took this guy in the first round like a year and a half ago, brother. And somehow he's in AAA with the Dodgers hitting, tearing the cover off the baseball and, spring training and in the minor leagues. And he, good organizations don't do shit like that.
Yeah.
They find ways to keep and develop those guys. And then you have the money that you're spending on those guys, so, it's just the same story, man. And that's why I wanted to build it into the NL West, and we'll cap it off with the big, I was going to say something else, but we'll call it a crescendo. Geez, man. But yeah, look, man, the Giants, holy smokes, brother. Like, that's a proud organization. They, it's not like they're, look, they had three World Series in 5 years, not too long ago. I know you love your Giants, and the sport's better when the Giants are good. As a Dodgers fan and someone who loves the Dodgers, maybe I'm probably different than most Dodger fans. I actually want the Giants to be good.
Yeah, I always have this discussion with you. I always think it's BS, but
No, I really,
I love you. But
I know, but I really, and you know why? Because like I look back to the one year that the Giants were good a couple of years back when it was the Giants and the Dodgers, and it was the one year that the Dodgers didn't win the division and the Giants won. They had
Mhm.
that flash in the pan year,
Yeah, yeah,
and you knew at the time. I mean, I don't want to burst your bubble, man, but there was obvious that that was just a
yeah,
like
yeah. It was a clear. Yeah,
it was
yeah,
just a statistic, one of those
yeah.
statistical fluke years where
Uh-huh.
everything all those guys that they had were having career years,
Yeah.
and it was just a flash in the pan, lightning in a bottle. They won the division, and they played the Dodgers, and the Dodgers beat them in five. And you know what? Even though it was a 1 year flash in the pan, that Giants team took that Dodgers team, which was on paper obviously infinitely better, but that Giants team took them to the last fucking
Inning.
out,
Yeah,
last inning,
yeah, yeah,
and the Dodgers had to exert every last
yeah,
ounce of that to
yeah,
win
yeah.
that series.
Uh-huh. So much
And
so that I think it doomed them against the Braves. Yeah.
and so yeah, I know we give each other a lot of grief, and it's fun. We banter and whatnot. But yeah, look, honestly, I might be probably one of the few people who is a is a Dodger guy. But look, I love the sport, man. More than anything, like fuck the Dodgers. I love the sport, like and the I've always I look back at those old giant Tim Lincecum, Madison Bumgarner, Matt Cain. Those teams back in the day, Kung Fu Panda, Brandon Belt, Brandon
Hunter Pence.
Crawford,
Yeah,
Hunter
yeah.
Pence, uh, you know, Brian Wilson. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that guy was a fucking psychopath, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
and I mean that as a sincere compliment. And I think the sport is better, and I enjoy it more when the Giants are good. It makes those Dodger games more exciting.
yeah, yeah.
When they play
Definitely,
each other,
definitely.
like it makes when the Giants are 13-21, I almost feel bad when they play the Dodgers, and that's why I don't really, because it's like, that's a proud franchise, and they should be up there with, there's no reason that the Giants should be 13-21, one game behind the Colorado Rockies
I
in the
know,
division.
I know.
There's no reason for that, and they have no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah.
That's just been a really poorly ran organization for many years,
Hmm.
and the fault and the flaws of that. I remember when we first started doing these on the record, we used to talk about Farhan.
Hmm.
Farhan's gone, man,
Hmm.
and they still suck ass.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, so at a certain point, it's just one of those things where it's like, listen, man, like something's got to give. Um, they need some juice in that farm system too. I mean that for a
they've
team
delayed that for
for it
years. Yeah,
they've kicked the can down
yeah,
the
yeah,
road.
and it's showing right now.
you know
It's
and
not, it's not good.
and that that's a team that, listen, if I'm the Giants, and listen, if that ownership group wants to go ahead, and hire us as consultants, listen, like, or bring it in, like, listen, you don't have, like, it's not that listen, what I would do, I'm sure I would love to get your thoughts on this. A smart organization, you take all those bloated contracts we just mentioned and you flip them.
Yep.
Build that farm system up, man. Because a guy like Rafael Devers is not, he's the kind of guy that if they, he's hitting the worst he's ever hit in his career. And I know that it's a tough place to hit. It's a tough ballpark to hit in. He's not the first that's been, sucked up by that ballpark at the plate. Adames, Matt Chapman, and yes, I know the argument would be that maybe it doesn't make sense to flip these guys where that value was really low, but it also doesn't make sense to hang.
Rip the Band-Aid off
It
and
doesn't
get
make
going.
sense to hang on to them while they have, or maybe in a year that have no value whatsoever. And obviously, we talked earlier, trades are easier said than done, but like I would look into that possibility.
Robbie Ray's for sure going to get traded at the deadline.
Listen, you flip any.
He's a contract year,
Listen,
and he's doing
there
well.
is there is
Playing
not a
well, so,
single. Listen, if you're gonna,
yeah.
the point I'm trying to make, if James Tibbs is magically on the Dodgers and Kyle Harrison's on the
Uh-huh.
Brewers, there's
Uh-huh.
no reason. Good organizations do the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
Good organizations do the opposite, and what they do is the opposite of what a good organization at this current state does. And so, yes, there is not a player on that team that should be off the market. Anybody's available for the right price. Logan Webb, anybody. Have a fucking fire sale. Get rid of anybody, whoever anybody wants. Rip the Band-Aid off. Stop kicking the can down the road. Stop kidding yourselves and just wipe it all off. Let Bryce Eldridge get 500 ABs at first base. Let him get some ABs. Beef up, your farm system. One of these days we'll do a farm system deep dive, but like beef up, and MLB drafting, but beef that up, like, beef that baby up. Let Rafi Devers, Matt Chapman, Willie Adames, anybody that's got anything, flip them for something. I know, baseball is the one sport where they don't really trade draft picks. I mean, you don't really see that. I mean, it's happened, but very rarely. It's more, prospects and major league guys like, but yeah, go beef up your farm system, man. Take a flyer on a couple of guys, go out in the draft, look, suck ass the rest of this year, bottom out. I know baseball's got that thing, that the NBA is kind of trying to do something similar where like you can't have back-to-back high picks, basically. Baseball does something similar, like the White Sox last year couldn't, now the White Sox had the first pick this year, but they couldn't, and the Angels had the second pick this year, and, vice versa. So it's like, the Giants should capitalize, bottom out.
Yeah.
Get that top pick at least 1 year.
Yeah.
Get somebody to come in along with whatever guys you get. It's not that, but I don't know if they'll do that. But that's what I would do. That's the blueprint. It's right there. It's not that I mean, maybe it's difficult, but like you get sometimes sometimes you have to make difficult decisions in order to be long-term successful. And they need to rip the Band-Aid off and stop kidding themselves, because in many ways they've been replaced by the Padres, brother.
Yeah, certainly. And
the Padres, and we mentioned they just sold the other day officially yesterday for a record price. Steve Cohen and all that just got outpriced by these guys buying the Padres. Listen, the Giants need to look in the mirror, and I want to give the floor to you because I know I've said a lot, but I just wanted to light some gasoline on the fire so you could really, tear into these guys, because I know you got a lot and I can see it in you.
Yeah.
But that's my 2 cents of it. I think there's good organizations. There's no way that you have Kyle Harrison doing what he's doing with the Brewers, James Tibbs on the Dodgers, after drafting him in the first round, not even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's remarkable, man. Ironically, 2 teams got rid of James, the Giants and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. So anyways.
It's just it's the messaging above all that's so frustrating. They're talking about, they want to win and they want to do this and they want to do that, but then they go on and make signings like Tyler Mahle and Adrian Hauser to try and convince us that those 2 type of moves to round out your rotation, can be a difference maker. You don't go out and get a closer. What's happened? Ryan Walker has blew 2 games in this 6-game span against the Phillies and the Rays. He blew 2 saves. Keaton Wynn also blew a save. So there's no clear closer, and that's killing him. You got some good pieces like Landon Roop. I like Eric Miller. We talked about Bryce Eldridge, but I just think ownership is scared to be terrible for a bit in an effort to really
have long-term success. So that's why we got to send. So we said send this to Artie Moreno. We got to send this to your to the ownership group of the Giants.
Yeah.
Listen, man, we'll do it for half. I mean, I don't want to put a price on it, but we'll do it, man. They listen. They hire you, man. I'll throw your name at the front of the ring. Like, I'm nominating you, man. I love Busted Posey. I know you love Busted Posey, but they should, open the floor. We'll come in to save the Giants. But honestly, I think the sport, like, I enjoy the sport more when the Giants are good, and it pains me to see them just languishing in mediocrity and being. I think the best thing for them, bottom out, suck ass this year, stay in last place. Because the last thing that you want to see is, they end up just being at the end of the year with a larger sample size. They end up finishing like fourth or third, and maybe they win like 70 games, and they end up, maybe they end up with they won't make the playoffs, but, and I know there's a whole spiel, lottery and everything, but like, yeah, I just think they need to bottom out.
Yeah, they do
They
because
need to bottom out. They need to bottom out. They need to beef up their farm system. They need to get some juice, man. I know you mentioned ownership's afraid of that. Like, I would listen, man. If it takes a PowerPoint presentation, I gotta wine them and dine them a little bit with the blazer. Like, I don't know, man. Like, listen. We'll set up the meeting. We'll get you face to face with ownership, and we'll be like, listen, you gotta embrace this shit. But if you do, you'll make more money than if you keep languishing in mediocrity. It's the same thing I would say to Artie Moreno. I want the Angels to be good too. It makes it more satisfying when the Dodgers beat the Angels as well. It's no fun when the Angels beat the Dodgers last year, and it's like, oh, the Angels beat the Dodgers. Well, who, like, congratulations, like,
right,
like,
right.
who. But when you're actually fighting for something, then it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, fuck them, but there's like a level of respect there that's like you want that competition. Like, you want that, like, it's no fun if, like, look, nobody wants to lose.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to win. And you're not gonna win every year. It's impossible. But you want there to be some sort of competition. Like, especially with your quote unquote rivals, where it's like, hey, you know what? Like, but if you even fuck the rival sense, just in general, like, I think they gotta rip the band-aid off, man. They just gotta bottom out. They gotta suck. I know they're afraid to do it, probably, like you mentioned. They wanna just kind of keep doing the Chicago Bulls thing.
Right,
You
right, because
know,
they're selling tickets still,
the
and
Artie Moreno, that
uh-huh,
they want to stay in that same blueprint. Like, hey,
uh-huh.
we're making money. People are coming
Exactly,
to the games.
exactly.
We're
Gorgeous ballpark,
gorgeous
all this. Yep,
ballpark.
yep,
Corporate seats will sell
yeah,
out.
yeah.
People will come bring their kids to the game. It's affordable. Um, like you said, it's a gorgeous ballpark. Objectively speaking, it's a place I've always wanted to watch a ball game. It's on my bucket list. Um, yeah, it's just, dude. I think I want them to be successful, and I think there's a blueprint there if they follow it, but they have to want to follow that blueprint. Otherwise, it's going to be the
I
same old
mean, we've
story.
already seen the blueprint. Obviously, it's a difficult ballpark to hit in. Okay, cool. You don't need guys to smash home runs left and right. If you have good pitching, you have a good bullpen, and you have contact hitters, hitters that'll put the ball in play, and that are fast and give you good quality at bats. Because, bro, almost every single game right now, Willie Adames strikes out at least twice a game. I've seen it multiple times off of 3 pitches. Fouls one, swings and misses. He's out. And you gave him a fat contract.
And Willie's a
Um,
good player, man, but it's just the fit's not there.
yeah, absolutely, definitely not.
I think if you flip Willie Adames, like, if I like I'll look at it even from an angle of a team that isn't the Giants. Like, if the Giants dangled Willie Adames out there and it's like, hey, we're making him available. Look, are you going to get maximum value? No, it doesn't always happen,
Mhm.
but you can still find value in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's another team out there that probably, even if you're not going to give up your maximum of what you would have given up maybe a year or two ago, you're betting, hey, like, if we get this guy, we could tap into what's there.
Hmm.
Same thing with Rafi Devers. I always
Hmm.
like to say in any sport, like, if you've seen them do it once or twice,
Hmm.
they can do it again.
Yep, yep.
You know, uh, but yeah, that's an MLB thing also, just about the approach at the plate, and, like, guys just going up there, trying to launch angle and smack the bitch out of the ballpark, like, 230 is the new 280, and, like, it's just a new sport, man. It's a new age, different philosophy to hitting. Also, the pitchers are throwing nastier shit than they've ever thrown.
Hmm.
Like, um, but yeah, man, I think if you're the Giants, man, you got to rip the band-aid off. Just clear up a bunch of reps for all, guys like Bryce Eldridge and other guys. Promote some of these guys. Bring in some juice, and just give some guys a chance. Give them an opportunity to develop. instead of just languishing in mediocrity. Um, so I hope they take our advice, man. I really do.
I would love to clean house on player development here. Patrick Bailey is not improving whatsoever. Matter of fact, he's getting worse hitting. And
And that's the Kyle Harrison conversation too, right?
we just talked about Kyle Harrison. Luis Matos is also on the Brewers, I think now. So watch out. The Brewers are probably doing
some voodoo with him.
Yeah. He's gonna be a good piece. Joey Bart at least has been a serviceable starter in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is a guy who's a top draft pick.
He was a second pick overall. Yeah. So, I just think you need to look at player development. And, they're top 10 in payroll, dude, they've been top 10 in payroll for the past 5 years, and they're hanging out winning, 78 games, 80 games. So,
it's not good enough.
You just gotta get it done, man.
You gotta rip the Band-Aid off. It's not good enough, man.
And they doubled down with the Chapman extension.
And that's what I fear for.
Trading for Davis, so.
I fear for that, but that's why I want to start banging the drum, man. They need to listen to They need to listen to this, man. Yeah. Send this to the Giants. Send this to Buster Posey, man.
And the other Manassian brother, bro. Listen, is it a coincidence that both Manassian brothers have teams that are, last in the division with 13 wins? I mean, what's the deal here, bro?
The common denominator is
a Manassian running in front office
and ownership, and just hey, people are gonna come to the game. Like it's the Artie Moreno. Hey, you know what? Like they're coming to the ballpark. They don't want to win. Like they want to come. Like.
And Giants tickets are not affordable, by the way. So let's get that. Get that out the way. They're not.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's the Venn diagram, right? Yeah, the Manassian brothers in the middle. And then you get the ownership, and then the tickets on the other side.
Exactly.
Oh man, yeah. We send this to the ownership group. What's the name of the owner again? Is
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah.
There you go. I knew it was Johnson. I don't remember his first name for some reason. But yeah,
Johnson. He barely speaks.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah. He barely speaks.
But yeah, send this to him and Buster Posey and the Manassian brothers and Artie Moreno and all these guys. Like, give them the blueprint, man. One team, we haven't, we talked about the Giants. I do kind of want to talk about the Rockies a little bit as well. We bagged on the Rockies a little bit over the years. We bagged on the Rockies. They went out, they hired Paul DePodesta this past offseason.
Mm-hmm.
The Moneyball guy,
mm-hmm.
Which in the movie is Peter Brand, but it's Paul DePodesta in real life. Paul DePodesta spent a while with the Cleveland Browns, back in baseball. And, look, I think the Rockies, man, that's another team. That's another place I would like to watch a game at one day.
Yeah. I'd love to go see Coors.
They're another team that just kind of feels like they're in that same conversation, like the Giants and the Angels, where it's like, hey, people are going to go because it's a nice ballpark. It's a nice place to watch a game. And I hope for their sake that this is the start of a new era for the Rockies. They've had maybe a couple of good years in our lifetime at best, and more or less they've been mediocre to ass pretty much every year of our lifetime.
Yeah.
The only year that I really remember them where I really enjoyed it was the Carlos Gonzalez, Troy Tulowitzki team back in the day.
Yeah, 07, losing to Boston in the World Series. I think Kadire was on that team, Todd Helton.
They had, shout out to the half a season of Ubaldo Jimenez many moons ago.
Where
he had half a season. We mentioned baseball. So one of the cool things about baseball is, you have these guys who kind of, it happens sometimes they have 1 year a statistical outlier. Maybe they randomly at 32 start having 4 or 5 really great years. It's looking like Edwin Encarnacion, like Jose Bautista, Jake Arrieta,
right.
Those sort of guys that, or even a guy like Kevin Gausman, who had the high pedigree, didn't pan out, and then in his 30s he figured it out. Yeah, man, I think with the Rockies, look, they've got a couple of young pieces that they haven't had in a while.
Yeah. And Mickey Moniak has been balling over
People forget Mickey Moniak was 1-1, number one overall pick once upon a time. And I think sometimes it's a we expect instant success. He got drafted by the Phillies. went to the Angels. Now he's with the Rockies. He's kind of putting it together. You mentioned your guy Goodman
Yeah.
behind the dish.
Yeah.
They got a couple of guys in the farm.
Tovar isn't bad.
Tovar's not bad. They got a guy like Charlie Condon they took at the top of the draft, and the guy like Zach Veen. They've got a couple of guys that even before they hired Paul DePodesta, like they're existing pieces that they haven't had. Like, yeah, Tovar's a good player. Chase Dolander got roughed up yesterday. I don't know. They if they let him, they kind of stop messing with him a little bit. They let him do his thing. I think he's probably one of the most talented arms that they've had in a long time. I'll be interested. I think there's a blueprint for the Rockies to be successful. I think if they buy into it, and I think Paul DePodesta maybe is the guy to do it. We'll see if they can tap into it. I think they can be a successful organization, man. Like, honestly, that's the kind of organization I would love to like put my hands on and run. Like, not that they would give it to me, but like, with that ballpark and I think it would be fun to build a winner there.
Yeah,
it would be really fun to build a winner there.
I mean, listen, we're talking about division rivals, so I would hate for them to be a winner.
No, of course, but I'm just saying of like an objective sense.
No, definitely.
But yeah,
definitely.
dude, they've been mediocre for many years.
Yeah.
I don't expect much to change this year. They're still going to be mediocre, but at least they got a couple of decent pieces. And I'm interested to see what Paul DePodesta does and what kind of how they kind of build their organization from here on out. Because that's the type of hire that they've never made in our lifetime.
Right.
Kind of going out and getting a guy like that who is maybe, someone that they wouldn't have hired up until now. So I've got my eyes on that. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out. We mentioned the Padres. Look, shout out to them, man. We mentioned Trader Dave Dombrowski. AJ Preller's kept from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Jerry DePoto with the Mariners as well. They just, they it feels like they're constantly doing, the one difference though between, we mentioned the Venn diagram thing, like the difference between a guy like Dombrowski and then maybe a guy like DePoto or a guy like AJ Preller. Like with AJ Preller, it feels like AJ Preller's done a really good job. I give credit where it's due in a sense, but it's very fascinating to me at the same time because it's like twofold, where I disagree with it and I agree with it at the same time. I don't agree with. So what I'm trying to say is like the Padres have produced some amazing prospects over the years, and I don't agree with them trading all of these prospects that they've traded. Like, you mentioned Mackenzie Gore,
right.
CJ Abrams. I mean, Mason Miller might be the best pitcher in baseball, arguably, like regardless of reliever or starter. Like, I mean, he's the closer, obviously, but he's nasty, man. It's hard to hit that guy. But the A's, that was a brilliant trade for the A's, getting Leo DeVries.
Yeah.
So AJ Preller, I give credit where it's due in the sense that they're always developing prospects.
Yeah. But he also knows when to cut his losses.
And then he knows when to cut his losses too.
Trading Soto and everything.
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So I give my credit where it's due, even if he's not my favorite general manager necessarily, but I give credit where it's due. Where he's always, as long as he's been there, and now with the new ownership and with the previous ownership, like we'll see if there's much of a difference there. There's also the fun piece of like the Dodgers, Padres, Chelsea Civil War thing that we can get into a little bit later on, which maybe that'll add to the rivalry a little bit. But yeah, man, look, we mentioned beautiful ballparks. Look, there are not many better places to watch a ball game than in San Diego.
Yeah.
Down in Gaslamp, it's a great area. Love being out there. The Padres, look, man, they've been playing good baseball this year. They're in the thick of it. Griffin Canning made his season debut coming back from the Achilles, today, and they've done a pretty good job, kind of tight roping, like the fact that they've got a little bit of an aging core, but they also have some younger pieces.
Yeah.
They've done a better job maybe than some of these other teams that kind of walking that tightrope a little bit.
Let's see how Machado does this year. He's He hasn't had the best starts.
Yeah, yeah. They're paying a lot of money to him and
Uh,
Xander Bogarts and
yeah.
all these guys,
Listen,
but
that Xander signing it's just
yeah,
increasingly a disaster.
yeah, it looks bad,
That's
man. It looked bad at the time, and
yeah,
it's even
exactly.
worse
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
But you know
It was
what?
the thought of like, oh, the Dodgers are looking at him. Let's just go grab him. So
But you know
you
what,
know,
man? I give credit to the Padres at least in some aspects. I mean, and then there's the D-backs. You know, they're an interesting team, man. We mentioned this Ildemaro Vargas guy as an example of kind of some of these like, hey, out of nowhere, 34 years old guy who's never really had much big league success, and as of now, I mean, we'll see if he's able to sustain it or not. But as of now, first in the league in average and third in OPS. I'm a big Geraldo Perdomo guy.
yeah.
He hasn't even had
Listen, I
really
love their infield with
yeah,
Cattell, and
Ketel Marte too.
is
Always been a
Cattell
big
going to get
fan.
traded?
Always been a big fan of Ketel, man. I think look, a team should go out and get him if he's available.
He does have a no trade clause, right?
Yeah, look, we mentioned Jose Ramirez earlier. Ketel Marte, maybe I'm not to say that he's in that same Jose Ramirez conversation, but similar in the sense
He's
that
damn good.
he's really
He's
good,
damn
man.
good.
I'd put him in that same conversation, to be honest. I don't think the media would do that. I personally will. I think that Ketel Marte guy. I watch quite a bit of the D-backs and all these teams.
Yeah, you and I have seen him
you know,
absolutely work our pitchers.
Listen, man,
Yeah.
this guy's legit. If he
Yeah.
if he played for the Red Sox or the
You'd
Yankees,
be hearing about him all every day.
yeah. They'd be stroking this guy into oblivion, man. This Ketel Marte guy's incredible. He doesn't,
Yeah.
Same thing with Jose Ramirez. Doesn't
Yeah.
get enough love.
Yeah.
But D-backs kind of similar to Baltimore. We were talking earlier, like they made the World Series a couple years ago. They had this really exciting young core. They haven't really been able to build on that success. They have spent money from time to time in the last couple of years, but it feels like similar to what some of these organizations will do that maybe are in that middle tier. They spend the money, but not in the right places.
Yeah, you know what? They got unlucky with Corbin Burns.
That too.
They got unlucky there. I thought that was a great signing. I wanted the Giants to get him. He ended up choosing Arizona. And then
that was a tough pill to swallow,
yeah,
but
yeah,
they went out and got Bumgarner many moons ago as well.
Oh yeah,
that one was work. But yeah, Burns, they got a little unlucky. Eduardo Rodriguez has pitched pretty well for them. He pitched pretty well for Venezuela at the World Baseball Classic in that title game against the USA.
Yeah.
I think Arizona is one of those teams too. We'll see what they do at the deadline. I think they definitely look. You mentioned Ketel Marte. That guy's incredible. Whether he stays in Arizona or not, we'll see. But that's one of the best players in baseball that nobody talks about. And starting today onwards, we'll talk more about that guy because he's amazing.
They need Jordan Waller to get going.
Yeah, he's another guy, top prospect, just hasn't really figured it out up until now at the big league level.
Corbin has at least bounced back, I think.
Yeah, Corbin's bounced back, but even then, Corbin could definitely, I think there's another gear to his game that he hasn't been able to get back to that we'll see if he can tap back into.
Yeah.
Perdomo hasn't gotten off to the best start, but I really like his game. I think he's a great young shortstop, man. He had probably the quietest in terms of media coverage. 20 homer, 100 RBI season I've ever heard.
Picked him up the waivers in fantasy last year.
Dude, can you and just the fact that like a guy like that doesn't get talked about enough is a crime in itself. And then there's the Dodgers. To put a bow on it, man. And I know you have a lot you want to talk about the Dodgers. Maybe you don't. I've kind of refrained from talking about the Dodgers quite a bit over the years, and that's a subject maybe for what we'll get into after baseball. Kind of set the stage for that as well. But just to kind of put a bow on everything, dude. We've talked a lot about this with a lot of these different teams, and I want to talk about the Dodgers, man, because I think there's this fucked up narrative out there that the Dodgers win because they spend the most amount of money. And listen, man, yes, they have the highest payroll. Yes, they have a shit ton of money in deferred money. And you can say it's bullshit that they were able to get Ohtani, and on top of Ohtani, Kyle Tucker and all these fucking guys, Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow. You go run down the list and it's how, I understand there's a frustration there. But what a lot of people don't talk about is, okay, maybe impending lockout after this season, whatever, labor shortage, they'll argue about salary cap, no salary cap, and we'll talk about that. the argument that I would make defending the Dodgers is you look at all these teams we just mentioned. The Giants spend money, ass. Red Sox, maybe different conversation. Okay, Phillies, high payroll, ass. Astros, high payroll, ass. You know, you run the Mets, high payroll, ass. You know, you look at the Dodgers. Yes, they spend a lot of money, but what a lot of people don't talk about is who did they bring in? Andrew Friedman from the Rays. You know, they're basically the Rays with money.
Mhm.
You know, so for every Otani and Kyle Tucker and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, you've got a guy like Justin Robleski,
Mhm.
who's got a what was it? What do we 1.25 ERA after he goes another 6 innings, one earned today,
Yeah.
25 years old.
Yeah.
You know, just I mean, you run down the list. They've got guys in the minor leagues that are just waiting for an opportunity. You know, even a guy like Dalton Rushing would be starting for a lot of teams in the league at catcher behind the dish every day, but because they've got Will Smith, even if he's in the lineup, you kind of have to find different ways to kind of maneuver him around in there. You've got guys like Andy Pages, you know, the Dodgers over the years, they've added guys on off of waivers, off dirt cheap contracts. Max Muncy, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez.
Yeah.
Even the hero, one of the heroes of the World Series last year, who's been really good for them out of the bullpen, Will Klein.
Mhm.
They do an amazing job at developing, drafting guys, identifying players that they take on flight. We mentioned James Tibbs. The fact that they got him, the Giants and the Red Sox let go of this guy after being a first round pick within the last 2 years is remarkable.
Mhm.
That the Dodgers ended up with him. But you look, dude, the Dodgers have a top 5 farm system in the sport
Every year.
and it's because they're a perfectly ran organization. So okay, you want to implement a salary cap? Oh, great. That's not going to solve any of baseball's problems, in my opinion. The problems go much deeper than that. And so I know a lot of people want to bash on the Dodgers, and yes, you can say that it's bullshit that they have all of these players, but let's also call a spade that they're not good solely because of that. They invest money into, you mentioned, player development, scouting. They have a great organization that's got a perfect blend of, they blend the analytical new age model of the game versus all the they've been at the forefront of a lot of things. Andrew Friedman, when he was with the Rays, was a wizard, and it was a slam dunk at the time when I hired him, and it's proven to be even more of a slam dunk. Like top to bottom, they're a well-oiled machine, and whether they win the World Series or not this year, honestly, doesn't really matter. It doesn't really take away from the fact that they're the best run organization in the sport. And I know a lot of people hate on the Dodgers, and that's fine. I get it. I understand it. But I think in many ways, we should actually commend the Dodgers, and we should, there's no reason that you can't spend the money okay, you don't want to spend the money like the Dodgers. You can spend it smartly. So all these different examples of teams that we're mentioning, you don't have to spend the same amount of money. You don't have to, but you can still be competitive. And the Dodgers should be docked for doing everything that's within the means of the rules that are within themselves and the means within it. But even without the money piece, they're ran really well in a front office standpoint, and they do a great job at adding on the margins, developing prospects, drafting guys. Will Smith, homegrown player. All these different guys, and then they have the fuck you money too on top of that, and that's the part that people don't like, and I get that. But let's not lose sight of that in spite of the other piece of the equation, I guess is what I would really like to say. I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add to that or not, but
I'll say this. I only have 3 friends of mine who I respect as Dodger fans, and the reason why is because before all of this glitz and glamour, you were still fans when the team was bankrupt under Frank McCourt. And you didn't. You went through that. You went through the bad, and you had, you're with the good now, and I understand it. I get it. Obviously, for me, where my disdain comes from, it's because, A, division rival, B, growing up. That's just
that's just how it goes.
That's
That's just sports, man. That's how it goes.
C,
and I would be mad at you if you didn't hate the Dodgers, by the way.
Right, of course. See, anytime I go to Dodger Stadium, I'm getting harassed for no reason.
That's what makes sports fun, man.
But no, man, that's a whole. You got people in the stands over there that are willing to go to jail for this. You know what I mean? And it's like, guys, let's all relax.
Let's take it. Let's have some fun, but not like that.
And I think where the narrative comes from, it's yes, even before the outrageous money spending, they were in the World Series 2017, 2018, and I know in 2017, they should have won. They call it what it is. They should have won. If the Astros weren't cheating, they would have won. They absolutely would have won. I think the Dodgers were such a good story before because, like you said, it was them, developing talent, going out and, getting guys like Max Muncy, Kike, and all the names that you mentioned, and they were winning over 100 games. And then in the trade deadline, they would make a move
go
or
out
two.
and go get the big name guy, the big fish,
yeah. And hopes to go.
Manny Machado, we mentioned earlier, all of the years they've done that a lot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they lost those 2 World Series, and then they were like, all right, let's go spend money. Let's just do it.
Let's just fucking do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So then they bring in Mook, they bring in Freddie, they bring in the Gambler, all the guys that.
Yeah, I didn't even mention Mookie and Freddie and all those guys.
And that essentially the way it looks is the spending the fuck you money took them over the hump, and that's when they started winning. And I was one of those people shouting from the rooftops, they only won during a shortened season, right?
Yeah.
I was one of those guys, and they've shut me up winning back-to-back, and they're likely going to three-peat now. And I've always had these conversations with you off the air. It's not the fact that they're not breaking any laws here.
Yeah.
But what they did do was they saw a loophole and exposed the loophole to a level that has been never seen before.
Yes. And I think that what I'm trying to get at is they shouldn't overreact to the loophole. Close the loophole without losing sight of
who they are and what got them there.
Yeah. You can in the lockout agreement, in the CBA, you can go in, you can make some tweaks to that, but don't go too far in the opposite direction to where we're now rewarding the Artie Morenos and the cheaper owners. Let's not go too far in the other direction. You can close. Yeah. Look, do you want to talk about the deferred money part and that loophole? Yeah. I think that you could definitely expose that in the lockout, and you can address that, and they should address it because you said, the Dodgers found a loophole.
Right.
Because no one. I mean, it's not like no one else could have done it. It's just that they're really the first to do it into that extreme, with the Ohtani contract, and then even the Kyle Tucker contract, same thing.
Right. Snell,
most of them are deferred.
But they're making their money right back, dude. Yeah. So they're making their money right back.
And so I just I get that. I don't want the narrative. I think this is where we kind of come in and we keep having these conversations. We need to establish it so that the narrative doesn't lose sight of what's actually there. Let's not with when the lockout stuff potentially arrives, or when that threat looms with that big salary cap thing hanging in there. This would be the conversation that I would really have, is that does implementing a salary cap solve baseball's problems? No. In fact, I think what baseball needs more than anything, instead of a salary cap, is a salary floor more than anything, because you've got some teams that just refuse to spend anything.
Yeah, don't get it twisted, fellas. These guys can spend money.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously not the Dodgers money. Okay,
Oh,
let's get
yeah.
that out the way. But they can spend money.
Yeah.
There should be no reason why you have a $20 million payroll.
And if you can't,
So
if you're like, because I understand, I'll never forget, I read this article where they were talking about how there's class systems of billionaires.
mhm.
So like they had their own separate sociosphere,
Right,
right?
right, right,
So it's
right.
like, oh no, like, I only have the 2015, not 2015, I only have like 7 private jets. Like this guy's got 15, oh, I can only crap in 20 gold toilets. This guy's got 50. This guy's wiping his ass with $100 bills, and I'm only wiping my ass with fives. Like, there's levels to the billionaire socio class. And I remember reading this article about this. It was a sports article, and there's like this class system of billionaires, and that's also a propaganda piece, by the way. But yeah, like, look, are there levels to it? Yes. Can and some teams are ran better than others, but like the teams that don't spend, like the Marlins, the
Mhm,
Guardians,
mhm.
these sort of teams that don't spend money. Can they spend like the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies? No. But can they spend more
More
than
than what
what
they're
they
doing, of
spend?
course. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
100%, 100%.
Um,
So
so let's not get it twisted in talking about like a salary cap and like the Dodgers are the problem with baseball. No, the problem is that everybody should try to be like the Dodgers instead of penalizing the Dodgers for doing what every team should try to do. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I don't want to be one of those like insufferable Dodgers people because I just love the sport. So that's why I try to refrain from talking about the Dodgers a lot. But I think as objectively as I can, that's the point I really want to tie around with a bow with this like baseball conversation that we've been having. It's like the blueprint's not that difficult. It's
mhm.
really not. And even if you don't spend the money, like you mentioned that even before, like, look, that it's not that like the Dodgers haven't been spending money. Yeah, they were still spending a lot of money before too, when they were making those like trade deadline acquisitions. It just wasn't to the level that they're doing now with the deferred money, but they were still spending money. And the fact that they didn't win a World Series didn't take away from the fact that they were still probably the best organization year in and year out. They just didn't win the World Series, and that happens. And now they've won 2 in a row, but nothing's really changed. They've been this way for a while now. Um, and I just think instead of going after the Dodgers, we should go after teams like the Angels more instead.
Yeah, yeah. Your Angels, Pirates, Rockies of the world. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
that's the
Marlins.
point
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
make.
Yeah.
Without trying to come off as a homer and a hater, but like that's just as objective as I can put it. With just trying to stand for something, that's what I would say. Um, so we're gonna put on that for Major League Baseball. Can you believe it, brother? We did that. That was about an hour and 57 minutes and 30 seconds talking
Yeah.
about Major League Baseball.
And we could go on even longer,
That's what I'm saying. Now,
but
which is crazy because we still have a lot we want to get into.
I know, I know.
So I don't know how you feel about that. If you want to keep running, you want to break it up into multiple parts, I'll leave that open ended for you. But I know we still had a lot we want to get into. But if you want to, I want to put the ball in your court here. See what you think.
We'll just talk a little bit about the UCL, and then we'll break up the last segment for what I wanted to talk about,
Sounds good
um,
to me.
and then NBA playoffs. We'll save for another time. I know you've had other recordings covering the playoffs, so
We'll have to touch. We can touch on that a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah,
Oh, you can touch. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll give you the floor for that. But yeah, you mentioned so we're watching the Orlando Detroit. We can do a quick little. I'll just get your thoughts on that real quick, and then we'll go to the UCL. We watched Detroit bludgeon Orlando in Game 7. Moving on. Just anything you'd like to add real quick on the playoffs? I'll save it, so that way, we can get into UCL and what we have for our last segment after that beautiful baseball deep dive, by the way. That was a blast.
Yeah.
But just on the NBA sense, if you have any thoughts there, happy, always happy to hear your basketball thoughts as well.
Make this quick and dirty. In a day or two, Jamal Mosley is going to get fired from the Magic. You've already heard, even when they were up 3-1 in the series, that the reports were regardless of how things turn, Jamal Mosley was going to lose his job because him and Paolo Banchero are not agreeing on things. And a small market team like the Orlando Magic that has a guy like Paolo, who are they going to take the side of? The player or the coach? The player. So Jamal Moses is going to go. I thought Orlando losing Franz Wagner definitely hurt. It's clear and obvious. Game 6, bro, they missed 23 straight field goal attempts, breaking the Rockets record in 2018, if you remember that, against my Warriors. As soon as that happened, bro, you knew that this was over. And credit to Detroit. They dug deep. They came back. But Detroit has their own demons to fight. I think Orlando certainly exposed one thing that's missing, and that's a second scorer for Cade, especially when the game slows down and it's more of a half-court offense compared to the speed and pace they play in the regular season. But credit to Detroit. That's their first playoff series win in forever. Let's give a shout-out to Philly. I think many people, including myself, forgot the type of impact Joel Embiid can have on a series, and Boston did not have any answer for him. And I do want to give Boston credit for not allowing Jason Tatum to play, even with the stakes were what they were. In a game 7, they were up 3-1, but obviously he came back from an Achilles, so and he's still 25, 26 maybe. So I thought that was a good decision from them. And obviously they knew that they could win a game without him. But they didn't. And, it's the old saying of live by the 3, die by the 3. I thought they just weren't getting good looks, essentially. And listen, man, Philly's dangerous, dude. Philly's dangerous. I know you've been talking about them throughout the whole season, actually, as a matter of fact. You've been shouting from the rooftops. If everybody's healthy, they can be a good team. And yesterday, you were validated. So gotta give you your flowers, gotta give you credit. And that Sixers-Knicks should be a really, really good series. As long as whoever wins this Game 7 here between Toronto and Cleveland. I think in this series, every home team has won a game, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if we're going to go in that direction, I think Cleveland will take it.
Yeah, I saw something interesting where since 2021, the road team is now 10-8 in Game 7s, whereas historically beforehand, I think it was like 150 something to maybe 40 losses for the home team.
Wow.
So recent trends and I think we'll do a deep dive later. We'll save that for another day. But I got connected back to that. But I just wanted to float that out now to highlight a much deeper point far beyond the playoffs. But yeah, man, I think it should be a fun Game 7 tonight in Cleveland between Toronto and Cleveland, and look, the East is wide open, man. We'll talk a lot about it over the coming days and weeks and months. It won't be the only time we talk about it, but one thing I will say to add to what you said about Boston, honestly, man, I give a ton of credit to the Celtics. Not only for, you mentioned the Tatum part of him not playing in Game 7. I would give credit to Tatum for coming back and playing the way that he did.
Yeah.
I know he said he was probably about 80 to 85%. He had some comments today in the little exit interview, and one of his legs is actually, I think his right leg is still smaller than his left leg at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So I think the fact that he played that well before getting hurt, unfortunately, in that playoff series against Philly, the way that he was able to play at the end of the season, coming back from that sort. I mean, obviously nowadays with modern medicine and whatnot, it's not what it used to be, and he's younger than, like when Kobe tore his Achilles, for example.
Right.
He's a decade younger. But still, nonetheless, a lot of credit to that. And I give a lot of credit to Boston for being in the place that they were in the regular season standings before Tatum came back as
Mhm.
well. Before Tatum came back, Jaylen Brown had the highest usage rate in the league, and he had a really good season. And I think, Armand mentioned this, I think, a couple weeks ago, but just to kind of reiterate what he said, where I think, Jalen, there was always this ridiculous narrative out there that's like, oh, the Celtics should have to pick between the two of them. And I think that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both this season showed that that entire conversation was ridiculous in the sense
Yeah.
that they could both do it if they were on different teams.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have both of them is something that not a lot of teams have, and I give them a lot of credit. So even though they didn't win even in the first round, I think for Boston, when the dust settles, this year was a smashing success for them. They were able to slash salary, get younger,
Mhm.
get cheaper,
Mhm.
added some more flexibility, and maintained about the same level of regular season
Same.
competitiveness. And maybe look, to be honest, I think you mentioned Philly. I think it's just one of those things. It's kind of like with Denver and Minnesota, where the media narrative of it is that you always kind of have to bag on the team that loses, but in reality, only one team can win a championship
Mhm.
and only one team can win a series,
Mhm.
and not everybody can win, right? So it's like, I think, like with Denver and Minnesota, for example, I think that says less about Denver and more about Minnesota and like the
Yeah.
quality, the quality of how good those players are, that like the media coverage is just like Ant Edwards, like let's jerk this guy off into oblivion. But I think Minnesota, and we'll talk about this, we'll do a deep dive on it, but just to kind of like tease it for this upcoming week, because we're going to do a deep dive on it, but just to kind of set it up is like, we did this baseball deep dive, which is like an hour and 57, brother. We could do like a 15-hour basketball conversation. So I won't torment you or anybody else with it today, but I just kind of want to set the stage for it a little bit. Just because I feel like even myself, like I haven't really talked about it the way that I would like to talk about it. And I think I haven't held myself maybe to the same standard that I would hold myself. So from here on out, I definitely would do that. Cause like, brother, dude, like, the basketball coverage is fucking stupid, man. Honestly, it drives me nuts. And I think the sport, honestly, I think the NBA, just the games themselves have never been better in our entire lifetime. Just the coverage sucks ass. Um, I mean, you mentioned Orlando and Paolo Banchero. I'll be honest, they played better than I expected that they would. I thought Charlotte was going to beat Orlando,
Mhm.
and I thought Charlotte was going to beat Detroit. I got that wrong. So for every victory, there's a loss. You
Yeah.
mentioned Philly.
Yeah.
I appreciate you give, but I'm not going to bat 1,000. So I admit, I got that one wrong. I thought, we could talk about Charlotte more, but I really thought Charlotte was going to have a chance to make a little bit of a run. But Orlando ended up bending over and beating the crap out of them. They smacked the dog crap out of them in that playing game, and Orlando played better. But yeah, those Jamal Mosley rumors were coming even before the Detroit
Right.
series, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that yeah, but like this Toronto Cleveland game, like it's a shame that one of these teams has to go home because I think the winner of this game is going to make it to the conference finals, in my opinion. And that's no shade to Detroit. I think Detroit had an excellent season. I think you mentioned they showed a lot of resolve coming back and beating Orlando. They could have easily folded. And just like I kind of said with Houston, like I gave Houston a lot of credit. They could have easily folded. They could have gotten swept or gentlemen swept, but they put a little heat on the Lakers. And yeah, they got fucked in game 6. But I give a lot of credit to those guys for not giving in and battling back. And, you know, so yeah, I just want to, I think it'd be fun to really just go in it further in depth to not only today, but from here on out. Because I think there's a lot of depth that we haven't gotten to that we can. Not that we haven't, but I think there are levels to it that we can get to. Um, but yeah, man, we'll continue to add to this conversation. There's a lot we could get into there, but I just think the media narratives are ridiculous because, like, even you mentioned with Philly, like, look, Embiid's amazing, and he's a game changer when he's healthy. He doesn't even get talked about enough.
Yeah.
This is a guy who I know he's never played more than 70 games in a season, and he suffered through injuries throughout his career. But when he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. And Tyrese Maxey's a joy to watch, and
Mhm.
VJ Edgecombe was honestly is the difference maker. He's been the
Mhm.
juice. They got him at the third overall pick, and Paul George, we kind of bagged on him a little bit, but you know what? He's playing the best basketball of his Sixers career.
Mhm.
He's really bought into like playing, just being, he's not maybe, he's not going to take as many shots as he used to, but it doesn't mean he's still not a quality player. He still could score the basketball. He's going to still defend at a
Yeah.
high level.
Yeah.
Kelly Oubre, you mentioned
Yeah.
over text, like,
Yeah.
that's so yeah, look, like, I just, like the one thing I'll end with just on this thing, like when I was mentioning with Minnesota, like, the media coverage would just be Wemby, Wemby, Wemby. But like with both of those teams, like that's a heavyweight Titanic clash,
Right.
Minnesota and San Antonio. And like even without Ant, I think it's a great series. Like, that's a Minnesota team. I think again, people are going to make it about Denver and Denver losing to them, but it goes to show you like these players are better now than they've been in our lifetime growing up. Like when we
Yeah.
were growing up, dude, like you mentioned the Warriors Rockets 2018.
Mhm.
This is not the same sport that it was just 8 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
8 years ago it was the Warriors, Rockets, Cavs.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
sure, look, OKC might be the favorite, but dude, they're not a slam dunk to win the thing. I mean, last year they almost lost to Indiana in games. It depended. Indiana played them great. Um, OKC could just as easily lose, in the conference finals to either Minnesota or San Antonio in the
Mhm.
finals to one of these teams,
Mhm.
or they go back to back, and it's credit to them because they're an incredible team. But like, yeah, dude, these are great basketball teams: Cleveland, Toronto, Philly, Boston, Denver, Minnesota. Like the NBA has never had this many good teams at one point.
Yeah.
Like these are good basketball teams. Houston, even like only one, just somebody has to lose, somebody has to win. That's just how it goes. And like the narrative of it has to change because it's like, instead of talking about just like the superstars, and yeah, they get all the headlines and shit, but like, like what my guy Terrence Shannon Jr. did in game 6 to Denver was awesome,
Mhm.
man. Like,
Mhm.
and he could do that. You put him on a team like the Kings or something, or the Wizards, or one of these teams. Not to say that the Wizards and the Kings, like they got their own players that are really good that we can talk about a different day, but like my point is, if you gave a guy like that an expanded role, he could do that on a game to game basis.
Yeah.
But because you have to have the opportunity. There's only 30 teams, and there's a hierarchy in the NBA that maybe it doesn't have in other sports. But these are good players, man. Like Jaden McDaniels doesn't normally get to do what he got to do, but like I mean, dude, he was incredible, and he's a great player, and he could do that. He could be a like, with the full usage rate like he got to have, like he's an all-star player. He could do that. He's like that.
Yep.
He could do that. And we don't talk about it like that. And then, like the narrative, like with Wemby, like, yeah, look, Wemby's incredible. And, like the narrative is like Wemby's like the greatest defender ever. And yeah, look, he might be. He honestly, he's incredible. But I think because he's so good, we also kind of lose sight about like how good the rest of the guys on the Spurs are,
Right.
and then how good the other guys are in the league, like on defense, like Gobert, incredible defender, McDaniels, incredible defender. Like we kind of don't, just because like that guy's good doesn't mean there are other people that are good too. And I think that's the part that I would like to talk more about. So I won't rant too much about it now, but just to set the stage for it in future conversations, like I think that's the part that needs to change, is like the coverage part of it. And you can't complain about it if you don't do anything about it. So we'll set the stage for that in future times. But now you mentioned the UCL.
Yeah.
Brother. One tie down, one to go. Both incredible ties in completely different ways.
Yeah. Talk about a tale of polar opposites.
That Champions League tie in Paris between Paris and Bayern. You won't see many matches better than that. That was end to end, breathtaking stuff.
Yeah.
And then Atletico Arsenal. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if that's another 1-1 head to penalty sort of deal. Just a cagey second leg in London. But I don't know what your thoughts are there, just as far as what you saw in the first leg and what you expect in the second leg.
I saw two teams in PSG and Bayern that did not give up their identity, which is attack, attack, attack. Just the amount of world class talent that was on display in Paris was incredible. And It's a shame that Ashraf Hakimi's not going to play in the second leg in Munich, and I think that is why Munich will go through. Actually, as a matter of fact, Hakimi does so much, bro, for PSG.
He's a great player,
He
huh?
does, he does so much. Whether that's defensively, offensively, pushing the ball up or feeding the midfielders. Luis Enrique is a great coach. I'm sure he'll figure it out. But with the Munich crowd behind them, and just the way that Bayern have played throughout this season, it feels like it's their year. So I think with the support of the home crowd, I think they'll go through. I don't think it'll be as end to end as such. Obviously, I think it'll be.
So you do expect it to maybe tighten up a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Um, but that said, Munich will still go through, and in terms of the other game, the haram ball, if you will,
Guerrilla warfare, huh?
dude, that was the overturned penalty for Arsenal. Mikel Arteta complaining and whining. I'll save this for another time. But what I'm getting increasingly sick and tired of is these coaches complaining and whining over and over again about the officiating call and this not going our way and this not going that way. And they're basically saying the reason why we didn't win is because of a referee decision. It's like, dude, shouldn't the mindset be don't allow the officiating to dictate a game?
Yeah.
Like
overcome it essentially.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yes. I'm getting, and I know here, all right. We're talking about Europe's elitist leagues and everything like that, and there's a lot of money here at stake, right? We're talking about winning a title or getting a spot in the Champions League and relegation and the financial. I understand, I completely get it, but I'm sick and tired of every single coach, bro, complaining after a game. From the time of Liam doing it, from the time of Carrick does it, Mikel Arteta does it, Simeone does it, Luis Enrique, like they're all doing it, bro. And it's like, guys, can we stop talking about that? Can you talk about what you saw in the game and what adjustments? Obviously, they're not gonna talk about what adjustments they have to make, but just stop complaining and whining about referee decisions. I get it. I understand it. And it's been happening way more. I don't know why I've been feeling like it's happening way more this season than any of the seasons in the past. But I'm over it, bro. Just stop talking about it, dude. Just move on, man. Damn.
I get you, bro. I get it. And I think that's a sports wide thing too. But definitely I feel like in European football right now, like with the like you said, the money at stake and the pressure of competition and whatnot. But yeah, it's tough, man. Because you definitely, obviously they're not going to give away the state secrets and their pressers, but at the same time, sometimes I feel like a lot of this could be a separate conversation, maybe, but to take it a step further, I've always felt that a lot of these press conferences, especially the ones that happen on the pit, before the match, the halftime show, the sideline reporter, with
Right.
it's always completely fucking useless.
Yeah.
99% of the time, you don't get anything useful. They ask some stupid fucking question that I can't believe they get paid to ask.
Right.
And they always have these big fucking notes and the whole thing. It's what do you for a 2-question, I never understood that, but maybe I'm just hating. I don't know, man. But I would take it a step further, and I just think not to keep bagging on him. I mean, I guess I really could though, but just from the propaganda pieces is one part of it, but then just the coverage of it, and then you mentioned the coaches part. I'll mention just sometimes I just feel like a lot of you don't get much out of these press conferences and the sideline, especially the in-match ones. And I get they have to do them because it helps, the marketing and the brand and the visibility, and you have something to upload onto somewhere and post a clip or whatever. I get that, but you do get from time to time, you do get some valuable information from every sport. There you can wade through all the transcripts and you'll find something valuable in each of them. But there's a lot of fluff within that as well. And then I get that. The managerial complaining can definitely we could do a whole deep dive on that. I get it.
But specific to soccer, luckily the good thing is there are no in-game press conferences.
Yeah,
You have
that's
your
true.
pre-match 2 days before. You talk about team news, and you talk
Oh
about
yeah,
what players can and can't play, and all this, and you give a little preview of the game. And you dissect what the other team does and whatnot. And then post game, you talk
you
about
recap it a little bit.
exactly, yeah, yeah. So give me more about what went on in the game, and stop
Stop
spending 10,
complaining. Yeah,
15 minutes about referee officiating.
yeah, I get that. I'm with you there a little bit, definitely. Um, so now, just to kind of mix it up a little bit on a non-sorting. Words are difficult. Non-sporting sense. Um, you had mentioned that you had watched the movie the other day. That you wanted to talk about the movie, and so I just want to give you the stage and the floor to go ahead and give your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Forgive me. Can we do a non-commercial, commercial-free break here
Oh,
and split this bad
absolutely.
boy
Oh,
up?
you know what? Actually, yeah, you go ahead. Actually, that's perfect. You know what? That'll be yeah. We'll make it a two-parter then. Make it nice and brief. So yeah, that actually makes more sense. We'll set it up then. So we'll make this commercial break. We'll wrap it up right now with the sports side of things, and then we'll come back for a separate episode. Maybe not as long as this one,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, yeah.
but we'll just get into something a little bit non-sporting related. But dude, this was a blast. We could, that you said earlier, we could keep going. But yeah, we'll make it a commercial break real quick. Episode from one episode to another, one sporting conversation to a non-sporting conversation. But for now, I have to spin the unfiltered report. My name is Ryan. To my left, Malik. We'll be right back after these non-sponsored commercial breaks. No free ads, baby. Till next time, which is coming up very shortly.